Ooh, hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show as we bask in the glow of victory. What a game, what a game. Man, that's so much better when it's entertaining. Yes, winning is good, but when you get a nice, entertaining, close game, those are also kind of fun to watch as well. Seattle Seahawks pull out the victory at the last second in this one. A lot to turn over and talk about in this particular football game, I think, coming on the other side of this. But a tremendous win, nonetheless, from the Seattle Seahawks team as they fought and scratched and crawled their way through this one to find their footing. That last drive at the end was an absolute thing of magnificence, shades of John Elway in 1988 and the Cleveland Browns. The cold tundra of the field so icy you can hear it crinkling under your feet. And John with no room for air driving that Bronco team 92 yards to get himself to a Super Bowl that would soon get him blown out in. But the drive everyone remembers, not them getting blown out in the Super Bowl. Nonetheless, this was one of those drives. Drew Lock coming down the field. He wasn't taking out the gardening hose there. No. He reached for the fireman's hose. He said, give me the one off the top rack. Mr. Waldron, we're not going to run our way up this football field today on this final drive. I'm going to go make it happen. I'm going to show you some magic. I'm going to show you what this hose can do. And 4 firemen unfurled that major hose, and he finally realized he had DK Metcalf on his team and put some absolute dimes out there. I want to quickly just put a little shout out and nod to the Philly Special show in the house. Says, congrats to you guys. Philly Special is a YouTube channel. I did a Behind Enemy Lines session this week. He was kind enough to come over on the channel during what I know is a very busy season for him and do that. I would look forward to absolutely doing it again with you, Philly Special. I got some great feedback. Hopefully you did as well on your end of it from your peeps. But he says, congratulations to you guys. You made plays when it mattered most. Also, thanks again for having me on earlier this week. Best of luck the rest of the way. I feel the same way about you, Philly Special. It was great to have you on. I really love doing these kind of behind enemy line sessions, and yours was an example of exactly why. Is I think that there's so much greater, better discussion to be mined rather than just trying to go at each other like caveman, but instead kind of try to dial into the particulars of the teams and get to maybe kind of the meat of it, which as you were talking about, brought me more into the understanding of where that Eagles team is, and hot and cold, and 2 cold teams, both looking to try to get hot. It was a tough game. It was a game went down the line. I think fairly well officiated, I guess, for the most part on it, Philly. Or if they were bad calls, I think they went both ways. But I hadn't thought too deeply on that one, to be honest with you. But well-played game, man, and both teams showed a lot of heart in that one. So I just want to quickly give you a shout-out on jumping on in here. And, man, let's do that again if our teams do match up. You run a hell of a channel over there at the Philly Special. And do please, guys, sub up to his channel as he was kind enough to come on in here into the Hawks Nest this week and chop it up for an hour with me. But when you finally let Drew go out there and let it rip, you finally kind of took him outside the box because you had him in the box a lot of the day. That's how he was averaging like 4.5 yards an attempt through a large part of the day, as it was, let's keep the turnover-worthy throws tampered down a little bit here for Drew Lock. Let's just try to make him have some nice, easy throws, and where that weird boneheaded play that sometimes comes in from left field on him doesn't have a chance to truly, really present itself. And indeed, you didn't. Throughout this game, Drew Lock didn't have the boneheaded play, even the near interception, right? The new stat that we've got of interceptable-worthy throws, turnover-worthy throws, interceptable-worthy. That's my new term for it, interceptable-worthy. But it means the same thing, okay? You knew what it meant, okay? Laugh as you will. You knew what it meant. You understood what I was saying. But they took him out of that box, and they had to. And he showed you that he can make those money throws down the football field as well. 2 9-route throws, the one to DK, the one to JSN. I mean, magnificent. We've seen on those 9-route throws that, in theory, they're very simple. Quarterback hits his back foot. Get yourself set up to just let it rip. Trust the rip when you let it go. All should be good. But how often this season have we seen that throw just fall, just die on the vine as it falls out of bounds? Or get overthrown by 10 yards, or underthrown where the defender, after there's been separation, can now catch back up to the receiver and make a play on the ball. the beauty of those two throws were both gave the receiver an opportunity to go make a play, didn't give the trailing a defender a chance to get back into the play, and let that guy say, you're going to make this play or no one's going to make it. And great job on those throws of not only being pinpoint on a throw that is very hard to be pinpoint upon, but also not just trusting yourself to, you got to put it in there. Got to give him a chance. No, it's a low percentage play no matter what. But you got to give your chance to go out there, a guy go out there and make it. And he did so. DK Metcalf, hopefully for some, I've said this is sort of an exemplary game about what, as I say in the Hawk fandom, I know there are many different fan base points that stand on certain points. There is an anti-DK sentiment. There's a heavy amount of us that are pro-DK in our outlook of him who look at it. And for, I think, the pro people that do find themselves on a little bit of the anti-DK sentiment, or maybe we need to trade him, or maybe it's not even a DK problem. It's just that we don't know how to utilize him right. DK showed you in this game as to why really going for the approach, in my opinion, of saying trade is the way. Trade is the way. Because we can't utilize him right is not the right way. The right way is finding the best way to utilize him right. And he showed you on that inning drive. He's done this before, hasn't he? He's been a very underrated clutch player throughout the course of his career. Doesn't get a lot of credit for it. In fact, I feel like DK doesn't get a lot of credit for a lot of different stuff from the fan base at times. Doesn't get a lot of credit for it. But when the game's winding down, when that clock's bleeding away and you need to go to a receiver, yeah, you can trust going to him, can't you? You can think to a couple times in your mind, even just merely this season. Even in moments when he goes and makes those catches to get you down the football field to put you in a position to get Myers to make a game-winning kick, and Myers misses the kick, but DK was down there making those plays at the end, right? As remember happened in one of the games this season. I believe was that the Rams game? But this shows for those folks, and I as I say, there's always respect to the folks I disagree with on the other side of it. I know that there are folks who have some really good points about where they stand on DK, and I get some of the stuff, not all the way, some of it. But the thing that, just in trying to maybe from your perspective understand those that are on our perspective, here's what you get in this game, which is DK through three quarters, 2 targets. One of those targets at the tops of his feet at 6'4", having to reach down and try to go pull it off the turf when Locke could easily get that right up in here. Wasn't that crazy of a throw there? Locke, very errant pass there on that throw. And even at the end, he's got the post route. He runs at the end where DK's got to jump down and try to catch it. And it's easily could just put that right up on DK's body. Still made the catch, still reeled it in. DK was money down there at the end. But it shows you in that game when you start to actually work him, throw him the bubble screen, he goes for 15 yards. Work him inside in the slot, he'll beat you on a slant. There are ways to utilize this guy at this point, and we need to make that fundamentally, not just this season, but going forward, center stage of our approach offensively speaking. Or at least a lot bigger of a priority than it's being led to be. Too many times early in this game throughout the first, second quarter where you're seeing Drew Lock go back to pass and the head's going first over here to Noah Fant running a 9-yard out route and DK coming wide open on the slant to the other side. See? Like this. Just back to the left. Back to the left. Anyway, they showed you tonight with DK why you can get more out of him, why he's got a lot more fruit left to bear from this particular tree, and no way, no why. If there's an untouchable guy on this team right now, in my opinion, DK is one of those guys. You move him away, you send him to a team like, let's say, Kansas City, and you're going to watch them unlock the real true potential of DK Metcalf. Just my opinion on that. I hope you guys are having a great night. It's been a tough skid. Had a tough season. This doesn't make all wounds heal, but it does help to make things feel a little bit better. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Micah Downey, glad to see the Hawks win. Me too, man. Robs says, I'm still in shock. They wrote him off, but he didn't write back. That's Drew Lock. I got to check out Love's Lock's press conference. Maybe we'll have to play that on stream here. Is it? I've heard a couple people reference it here. Might be worth putting it on stream. See what he's got to say on this. A couple people have referenced it. Rob says, for the first time, I wore my Marshawn Lynch shirt. They ran the ball. Maybe. Well, now Rob's. You know what that's doing. Okay, we can get into the intricacies of this if you want, but now you have created there's the energy factor created with that shirt. So, you can't call upon it all the time. It's like my Largent Power jersey. I got to bring it out for select moments. It doesn't always guarantee the win. Sometimes the odds are just too long. Whatever you can do as a fan to bring that energy forth and forward, you've got to do so. Maker says, let Drew brew. Let him brew, man. Get him some of those old barrels and let him get to work molasses and let's go. William Leonard, that was crazy game. Pretty insane game. Fun as hell to watch, though. I enjoyed it. DBO says K9 was Farrell. He was great. Man, that guy, when we finally find a way to create some holes for him, look out with K9. If they really truly address the offensive line this offseason and get some true dogs down in there, Abraham Lucas, dog. Charles Cross, dog. Middle of the offensive line, not so dog. But K9, on some of those, he can take your breath away with some of the cuts he can make on a football field. The one where he pulled out of the tackle, ducked underneath it, and then got lateral, exploded back lateral wide, flipped his hips, and then got back to the open field full speed within 3 steps to turn the play into like an 8 or 9 yard gain where he was corralled in the backfield. Another, again, just example of this year with these running backs where some people on the surface of it will look at these running backs this year and say, well, see, with the second round running backs, this is proof positive now that drafting the second round backs don't really have much of an effect on helping your offense solely on necessarily their own. That essentially it becomes defunct. However, the talent of the backfield you have, because if your offensive line isn't getting the job done, it doesn't matter. To that I say, if we have a 5th or 6th round running backs back there in this backfield this year, instead of being up around the 4.5 yard average that these two running backs are at, you would be at about the 3 yard average, or if not even lower than that. So they've gotten out of so much trouble, and that kind of play personifies that so keenly to me, where it's a 7-8 yard gain in the stat column. But anybody watching the play, that's like watching a home run from a back. A couple of donations in the house here. Thank you for those. Randall McDaniel with a $2 dono. Appreciate you for that. I get the feeling we're going to win out. This kind of win can definitely push a team forward in that kind of momentum. And when you look at the remaining schedule, Steelers, Pickett's been injured, offense has been inept. Some people even potentially calling for Tomlin's head, defense still good. Titans, they're going to play hard every week for Vrabel, no doubt about that. Levis just went down to an injury this past week. We'll see where he's going to be at for that football game. And then you got the Cardinals with Murray back there in the attack, and Murray has at least seemed to have upped the ante on the offensive potential production you get from the Cardinals in a football game. So won't be necessarily simple, but it's maybe an easier path than these past 4 weeks, the playing 3 games in 15 nights thing, all of that kind of cumulatively put together there, Randall, but it's certainly a possibility at this point, no doubt about that. I could see it happen. The Zillow Hawks, as Jamal subtract them. Yeah, it's definitely addition by subtraction on that one. I think taking out Tariq, taking out Jamal, bringing guys on the field, they're going to have a little bit more of a dogged approach to their game. You saw the upside of that today with Mike Jackson out there, with Artie Burns out there. I know Burns is more filling in for Witherspoon, but there's also times you're having Witherspoon go to outside corner with then Adams in at the slot. So even by Burns being in there, it's not just purely Witherspoon he's flipping out snaps for. He's flipping out some snaps as well for Adams. And at this point, I think that there's no doubt about it on at least one front that can be agreed upon by us in our outlook of Adams. You've got to kind of at this point, maybe not fully shut him down to deactivate him, but you got to let him know at this point, we're going to rest you unless we have an injury and need to go to you. You're not at 100%. We can see that. You can see that. We'll make our decision on what we got to do this offseason, but you're not helping yourself. You're not helping us out, neither side, by going on the football field at this point with your level of play and performance. And hopefully that's in the message that you can get through pretty clearly to him. Fan since 92 says 12. Let's go. Michael Myers, let's effing go. Rob says Shane Way Waldron made second half adjustments. Yeah, very surprising. He did. definitely leaned into more of the rushing attack and a willingness to attack. They didn't have success at all times, but a willingness to get a little bit more to the edges of the defense at times as well within that, which I like to see. And I'm behind on my donos, so let me catch up on some of these here. Michael Green says, huge win tonight. And thank you for the $5, Michael. Randall, thank you again too for you. It's great to see you in the house, brother. He says, huge final drive for DK, Locke, and JSN. Love should be starting over Adams. Agreed. Drew to start versus Titans. Pete's. Oh, shoot. Sorry, my stupid thing here. It's like, let me see what the message thing sometimes gets borne out on this. So you can't see exactly what's being put in. Here we go. Pete's timeout, an awful 7-7. Let's win out. Yeah, the timeout thing is something, as somebody said in my live chat, I forget. Again, to shout out to MJ Seahawk here in the house. Thank you for the $100 donation. I know I had to sign off quickly to the folks who do drop donos at the end there as the game's winding up. I always feel a little bit bad for having to sign off so quickly, but I'm impelled to get over there on the Bleacher Report. They want me there right after we sign off. So I just want to make sure I'm bouncing over there as I'm supposed to bounce over there. But the timeout situation, Pete's got things in his game, in his bag, wherever we stand on Pete, that are going to be a part of what you get with a Pete Carroll team now and into the future. And there are parts of what he has in his game that aren't positives, that don't help you necessarily win games, that can be offset by other things he can bring that can be positives. But then he's got to bring those other things that are positives. In my case, my belief would be, willingness to be more aggressive, schematic updates, doing things differently than you've done in the past, less soft zone defenses, less drafting to too much depth on plays. Those are more of the things to me, the big picture. Now, when you combo those big picture problem things with things like undisciplined football where you get penalized a lot, or your silly game time management timeout usage, both of those two timeouts to me, Michael Green, track back to Pete being unsure and not thinking forward enough about what he was intending to do 1-2 plays ahead. And good coaches think like that. They're thinking a couple steps ahead, not just thinking in the moment what's happening. So if you come up to a 3rd down and 6, in my head as a coach, especially if I'm not having to call plays there, right? I'm just watching the game and coaching. Then I'm going to go, okay, if this gets a completion and we were short 1 or 2 yards, what do I want to do? I want to go for it. Because I want to be sure that I can then tell my offensive coordinator before the 3rd down and 6 play, I want to go to my offensive coordinator and say, Waldron, you got 2 plays here as long as you get something on this play. If this is an incomplete pass on 3rd and 6, we're kicking it. You give me 4 yards, I'll give you the 4th down. So then Waldron can put together the right call he wants to in that moment. You don't think of it like, okay, we got the 3rd down conversion, we're short 2 yards, and now as the 25-second clock is rolling, you're going, Shane, you got a good play right now on 2? I got a pretty good play. We can go with a good play if you want to go with a good play. Do you really feel it? We can just go with Jason. Jason can pump this through. So why don't we do you really? No, man, I've got this. If you want to do it, okay, go ahead. Then they get the call out in the field. Then you see Drew Lock scrambling line of scrimmage. You're watching the play clock, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's the part where it doesn't have to be that way. And it happened twice on that drive. That's the part, though, that I say that goes a little bit with the undisciplined high penalty thing. That's never really, there's hope of the other stuff potentially changing. I don't know if there's a lot of hope of this changing, though, because that's always been a part of the team going back throughout your entire time there with Carroll a little bit. And he's always a little functified with his timeout usages. But man, a win's a win. And as you say, Love's got to start over Adams at this point. There's nothing in Adams and what he's bringing to the table that makes any sense. And Mike Jackson and Artie Burns and the effort they gave you out there, I liked what I saw from those guys too. So it is what it is, Michael. Thank you for that $5. Alan A's with a $2 donation. Can Locke do it again and again? We'll see. We'll see if he can make it happen in the future. I mean, Gino was close, I think, this week to starting. So we'll see if that can potentially, mean he can get this bounce back and get this going now at this point. But it was a good end. I will say I don't think Locke played a particularly great game, but he had a great finish. He had an absolute amazing finish. But it was also a game I think that he was being a little bit chained down a bit. You know, there was always kind of a leash there keeping him only so far from going too far astray a little bit on that one. Colby Jack, thank you for the $21 donation, Colby. That's very kind of you. It's great to see you in the chat too as well, brother. Thank you so much for that. Please, Christopher Walken to Pete Carroll, telling Pete Carroll he's sorry for saying Pete Carroll should be fired. Fit in Wayne Cody. I never can do a good Wayne Cody. I have been told I can sometimes sound a little like Wayne Cody, but I was just growing up young on Wayne, but that's a tough one. I got you on the first part for sure. Pete, Carroll, Pete, are you there? Pete, look at me now. Pete, buddy, now look. No, don't be like that, Carroll. Pete, you know, you're the coach. We're going to be hard on you sometimes. That's got to be tough love. Look at me, Coach Carroll. Now, please understand, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had it in you to take down this Eagles team at home, prime time. I thought Hurts, the Brown, would be unstoppable, especially when I saw you were putting Mike Jackson out there. I saw it, Carroll. How can I not question? You still freak me out every game with your timeouts and undisciplined football. But I'll eat my crow tonight, Coach. You got the win. Great job. Nice win. Now, let's stack a few together. Make it happen. Come on, Captain. I'm sorry. Sorry, Coach Carroll. Look at me. I'm sorry. I said, fire you. I said, he's got to go. I said, the old man's too old. Now I feel bad. So let's go. Chris feels sorrowful tonight, Colby. He's very sorrowful. How was I to know? You didn't think you had it in you, Coach Carroll, anymore. How was I to know? Bro. I'll give you Wayne. I'll try to look up some Wayne Cody clips, Colby, and give you some Wayne if I can find some Wayne. See if I can figure it out. I just found an audio tuner thing I'm going to start to play with. So one of these next few streams, I'm going to lean in like the bass heavy, like some of these broadcasters do, where they bring in the artificial bass. You guys are real bass. I'll be like Barry White up in here. Maybe make the impressions better. But Chris says, you know, Colby, what was I to do? Every sign, when I look in the stars and I see a meteor shower and they're dropping around me, it's like 2012. I'm Woody Harrelson on the frickin' Montana mountain saying, here they come. How do I not think the end of the world's there? Tell me now, you please do. Colby Jack, thank you for the $21 donation, man. And Chris is very apologetic to Coach Carroll tonight. Very apologetic. Lester Cross, thank you for the $2 donation. Fishing with an unused timeout made me so happy. Feel me? Yes, it did feel good that they got that drive done without even having to call in that timeout. It made them kind of burning the other two, definitely null and void. You were worried that moment when they did, because you're like, man, it's going to come down to needing those 3 timeouts and that extra little bit you can give the defense of breathing room for error. But hell of a job. And Locke, I just gave him credit on the throws. The throws were magnificent. The thing that was really good about Locke today, he wasn't able to slay the blitz, but he recognized the blitz. And part of the problem that gives Hawks quarterbacks trouble, both him and Geno this year, is when they don't recognize pre-snap the blitz is coming. And so they become surprised by it, and then the reactions to that surprise become a problem at the front end of this. On that play, he saw the safety driving forward, and he saw the clear space he was going to have over the top. And he goes, I'm going to trust JSN with my one-on-one. And the point of drafting a guy like JSN or having a DK Metcalf out there, trust your one-on-one. I even liked it when he went to Tyler Lockett early on in the game, or halfway into the game. Tried to get him over the top as well. Lock got pulled on the arm, or that play is probably going to be completed as well. But I even like the moxie going there. You get that matchup, go take advantage of it. You may not get it a lot over the course of the game. There was a lot of this game that the Eagles were going to show 2 high safeties to you. That's a lot of why I think they tried to run the ball more, was that they saw the 2 high safeties, and so that's going to be how you're going to counter it, because now you're going to get the light boxes. Especially if you're not necessarily sure if the corners on the edges are going to quite, tackle as much. But thank you, Lester. And yeah, I felt good about having that timeout still in the bag. That was good. Alan, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, all I'm saying is one game doesn't mean anything from Locke. Do it again. 100%, that's all I'm saying. No, I think we've got to put the game in proper place as far as Locke's concerned. He didn't play necessarily a great game coming into that last drive. In the second half, you were able to get done what you got done from an offensive perspective because you were running the ball, and almost solely by what you were doing, just running the ball. He made some good throws at times in this game, but it was also, you were almost into the fourth quarter. You had 115 yards passing. And I think it's great the way he finished, but as I'll always say, we put the whole game into perspective, not just the best part of the game. I don't think Drew Lock's shown you he's, the answer at this point. I will say this. If Drew Lock's 100% healthy and Geno is not at 100% health, and you're going to ask Geno to go out there at 90% and not use his legs at all and try to just be a statue in the pocket and spit pills all over the football field, I'd rather go with Drew Lock at that point. And maybe get Geno healthy for the playoffs or something, or I don't even know what. But the bottom line being is that get Geno healthy. I don't need Geno out there at 90%. But I wouldn't overstate this either on that, Alan. It is what it is. It's great. It's a great final drive. The error-free football as far as at least making any of those bad throws that have been there at times. Decision was on. Recognizing the blitz was on. That drive was a thing of beauty. I put it in the title. It was a masterful drive. But thank you for that $5. Appreciate you, Alan, for that. Jeffrey A. Thistle has been a Hawks Nest member for 19 long months. You can be a Hawks Nest member now yourself. I'll be doing PFF scores tomorrow morning for members of the channel, and we'll be doing a Thursday stream, members only stream, as we do on a weekly basis. So thank you for that, Jeffrey. He says, everybody needs to pump the brakes. Both teams played bad. We just played less bad. I'm certainly not going to take anything overarching in this being some big thing that's now meaning that this has happened off of one game. It is a single game result. This has come on the conclusion of 4 games of results that were pretty conclusive in what they were showing you and what you had in your team. Now, certainly there's more room for things to go in a certain way this year. Part of what I've also said here is that the assessment, and I know that in football there's a lot of drive to make instantaneous assessments and say, this is what we think and believe, and this is what it's got to be. I say you give it through this full season to see where this plays out and how this all shakes out. But I agree. I don't think this was a game in which you came out there and played so great. There was as much good as bad, and it was a sensational finish, and the team found that gear at the end. But we don't want to overstate any one game in itself as being that. At the same point in time, I think we should savor this flavor, as we haven't gotten to experience it very often recently, and just enjoy it for what it is, without it being more of anything, to a greater picture point, I would say. Nicholas Newton, and thank you, Jeffrey, for almost 2 years of membership to the channel. Nicholas Newton, thank you for the $5 donation. You know what else Locke didn't do? He didn't throw an INT the whole game. Proud of Locke for cleaning it up. Needs work on a few throws. A couple of the throws were definitely in the errant fashion, not badly errant, where he's throwing it 20 yards away, but just like the one throw to Charbonnet, where Charbonnet's got a little bit of separation and he puts the ball 10 yards out ahead of him. Kind of a couple of those throws, a duck he threw to DK. But the INT is an important part of this discussion, because it's not fun when you play a little bit in that safe mode. It's not fun when you're saying, okay, you coaching staff are obviously kind of putting him in this box. And I think it was as much Locke was instructed to kind of play in that fashion. But it did work. It did work doing that. The defense was able to hold this Eagles defense into our offense under the points and keep them in line. And, Drew was able to get that drive at the end. So the lack of INTs, the lack of turnovers or a fumble, Nicholas, these were things that if you had one of those in this game, if you gave one turnover to that Eagle team, that's a loss probably. So he had to play an absolutely crystal clear game, clean game, and he did so. I don't think there was any turnover-worthy throws in the course of this game that you could really go to. That's a big part. Cameron, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, I'm very happy for Locke. You could tell that meant a lot for him. This game probably bought him another 4 years in this league. Maybe very well said, Cameron. I hadn't really considered that about if he is a guy a little bit in that precipice point, where is he, okay, if he goes to be a backup somewhere else, is there that other place that is willing to have him be that backup? But it may be getting down to where that hour was getting a little bit more dire for him, recently. And that's a good point on your part. One hadn't really considered much in this with him, but he should feel really good about that win. He played a clean game against an Eagles defense where maybe the results haven't been there for them this season, but it's still a very talented Eagles defense. They don't make it easy for you. There was going to be a lot of unpredictability this week, which was going to make it really hard for Drew. He didn't know if Geno was going to start. He's got Matt Patricia taking over as the defensive coordinator midweek. So now any of the tendencies that you're studying and training to deal with this week are thrown out the door. Because now Patricia can do anything he wants to do coming into this game. And so it certainly was going to make all of that a little bit of a higher degree of difficulty, I think, for him. And coming away with this win, 92-yard drive, minute and 30 seconds left on the clock. Not playing it safe, letting it rip, trusting your talent, trusting your arm, trusting the talent you have on the outside, and getting rewarded for it. Great to see. Great to see. Well said, though, as well, Cameron. Alan A., thank you for another $5 donation, Alan. Says, Locke was, and Carroll was, out the door till tonight. Now fans switching 100%. Well, there may be, it'll be interesting to see in the discussion if we have a high contingent of fans saying, see, well, Locke is the way into the future. Through a lot of that game, a lot of my Lockites, I'll call them Lockites. A lot of my Lockites in the chat were coming at me with the dono saying, okay, maybe not Locke. So it certainly wasn't that way through the end of the game. But when it is such a magnificent ending as that, when the finish is just so clean as that, when it is just so wonderful as that, I mean, you're finishing on a JSN 9 route over the top, fingertip catch. I mean, that's going to get everybody induced into the magical elixir of victory. And that's a tough inducement. You know what I mean? Everybody's in their ayahuasca mode right now. That's all I'm saying. It's a wild party right now, and we'll see when they wake up after the hangover tomorrow where everyone's at. You know what I mean? Thank you for the $5. I appreciate you. Megan Gock Roger, thank you for the $10 donation. Over here. I can see this right. Megan, thank you for the $10 donation, and hope again you're doing okay over out there in recovery mode. Says Megan says, sorry, not sorry, B. Wearing the Pete throwback and the DK will be worn. And I tomorrow, wait, we're trading DK and firing Pete, right? Wearing my sassy pants with pride. Well, you wear it with pride. Both parties come out of this looking better tonight than sometimes they have throughout the course of this season. And maybe with that, a little bit of, what's the word I'm not looking for, vindication. Vindication on that, Megan. I appreciate the $10 donation. And good to see those guys who've both gone through some troubled waters get a little bit of a dub after, what has been a troubling deal. And as I have said, I don't root against Coach Carroll at any point from my standpoint, Megan. I do get asked my opinion on where I stand on things and where my belief is about where things are going. And that does remain what it is. And doesn't get changed off of one game from my standpoint. But there's no denying this is a big win. I don't want to undersell it. It is a big win. It puts you in a pathway of potentially having a true maybe path in the playoffs. I have told people I'm not a tank mode guy. That's just the way I'm wired. And I've also said that this is a full season assessment for me. I reset the clock 2 years ago with Carroll when he said he was changing over the offense and defense. I'll come to the end of the year and I'll have my full assessment where I make my final decision on what I think. But there's a lot of places and a lot of people pulled in a lot of directions, and you're not alone in your camp, Megan. There's plenty in that camp, a lot in the other camp too. And we'll just have to kind of see how it all kind of rolls out, through the end of the year. But congrats tonight. They're looking good tonight. They did their job tonight, and a hell of a win. Hell of a win against a tough Eagles team. No doubt about that. Appreciate the donation, Megan. Hope you're doing okay. Proper with a $5 donation. Niner in the house. We had the rare moment tonight, Seahawks fans, where the Niners were rooting for us like hell tonight. Proper, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, shout out to your team. Great win. Basically helped secure us the number 1 seed. I might finally see my team win a Super Bowl. Well, Proper, the season is one that is a lot of different parts go into winning and being a contending team, as we can certainly attest now where we stand here with this football team. And it's about talent, it's about coaching, it's about scheme. And even after you have that all put together proper, it also becomes about health. Then even when you put that in all together with all the rest of the stuff, it also becomes about playing your best football at the right time of year. And it doesn't make me happy to say it, but I always say that I'm always going to try to lead with honesty first and foremost. And the Niners are playing at that level where all of those things are brought together I just talked about, along with the fact that they're playing their best football right now. And the season's going to be winding down to the place where it seems like they're going to hold up from a health standpoint. I don't know who takes them down in the playoffs, NFC or AFC. And maybe it'll be a Ravens team that'll give them a fight, but I just come back to thinking, man, the way you guys got rolling and the momentum rolling and everything coming together, everything seems like the right time for it being that time where finally they're able to tap into that. And they certainly have earned that place this year. They've taken on the tough teams. They've taken them down. They've handled business. I've always said with this proper, the only thing that can knock you guys off this year, in my opinion, is just a couple of injuries. 2 injuries and it can make the huge difference. But if you can stay healthy, then look out. Look out. But thank you, Proper. I can't say that I'm happy that we helped out the Niners tonight, but I'm always going to celebrate a win. Even if there's a little bitterness to the slight back end of my tongue what does that taste? What is that? Hold on, I got my coffee. What's that? Thank you, Proper, for that dono. Alan with another $5 donation. Thank you, Alan, for all the donations tonight. Brandon, regardless, Seahawks needed this game. Imagine if we had lost tonight. A lot of different comments going around. Yeah, it was going to get dark. It was going to get dark really fast if this game went down into the crapper for sure, especially if you lost this game in a really, really bad fashion. So, it was good. I think the fan base could use this too. Been a rough road the last 4 weeks, not from my perspective, but just, sometimes being this, kind of the shrink in the room as I've got the guys on the couch and people are airing some of their feelings on the situation. It's been rough for some here. Okay. This has been a tough season to swallow. Nobody was expecting these results and it's got people kind of caught off guard a bit, and that's going to draw out a lot of reactions and definitely it was steering into that direction, Alan, if this kind of kept going. And good to see that it didn't. Good to see that the team's going to show some fight this year. Doesn't mean they're going to get in the playoffs, but at least good to see that resiliency of spirit. Good to see them playing hard football out there, which is at times this year I haven't been always able to feel like I can say. But what do they say? Stems off the wolves for at least one more week, I guess. And now the stage is set with these last 3 games to go out there and close this year off and get yourself, I guess, into the playoffs at that point. If I think you can get to a 10-7, you probably get in. We'll break down this week how all the this to that works and how the possibilities work to getting to that playoff point. But if that's the case, this win will turn out to be the huge one of the season. But thank you, Alan, for the donation. And yeah, there were a lot of different rumors and comments going around. It's a good way of putting it. It's getting dark. Sanchez with a $2 donation. Thank you for that, Sanchez. We really have 2 backup quarterbacks. Pick either one. Yes. I don't know there's a huge difference between the two. I think you can trust Geno to be a little bit more of the high volume passer versus I don't know if I can trust Drew Lock to be a high volume passer at any point in any game. But at the end of the day, I've said that they're much more closer together in talent level than they're further apart. Part of why when they had the quarterback competition, it wasn't easily just quickly, this guy's the starter. They bore on through camp. But yeah, we're gonna draft a quarterback this year. We're going to draft 2nd to 4th round. We're going to go pick somebody. We're not just going to ride with one of these 2 guys going forward and some Holton Allers type guy or whatever is the number 2. You'll get one for the future this year. This class it aligns so perfectly for it to be that case. Alan with another $2 donation says the Niners, 100% good luck though. Regular season wins. Yeah. I got to give them props. They've had a hell of a year. It is just regular season. You got to get it done in the playoffs, but they're setting the stage well. Getting that home field advantage is a big thing for them because if you let a team like the Eagles get the home field advantage and you got to go out east and play in a game where the conditions are crazy hard for you to operate your offense in, and leveling the field a little bit, maybe that hampers you versus being able to play in San Francisco in your home stadium. What's likely to be probably pretty temperate elements at play on that. But they've earned what they've gotten this year. It isn't like they just played through a light schedule and lucked their way into where they've gotten. They've taken down this Eagles team. They've taken down the Cowboys. They've stayed toe to toe with these teams. So you got to give them their props when they earn it in that way, even if it's through gritted teeth. Thank you guys for all your donations tonight. And well said on everyone's part as well. Love your thoughts on all this. Stephen Ground says, I always liked Drew. He has a great arm. He has got a marvelous arm. He really does. Strong deliverer, as we saw in those 9 routes. He can drop it right down in a little dwarf bucket, not even a normal sized bucket, right in the, he can put it in the spot. Travel Nature Fanatic, we have 2 starting level quarterbacks. Rich man's problems. It's a good way of putting it. I like that. BP 1989, Leonard Williams needs to be the first priority this offseason that we signed. Yeah, he played a marvelous game. If Julian Love was your best defender, Leonard Williams was your number 2 best defender right behind him in this game. Active throughout. Impacting the game in a variety of ways, both against the run and the pass. You may not have got a sack in the stat column this week, but this was maybe the best game we've even seen so far from Leonard Williams played. And he will, I believe, be the highest priority free agent signing that they'll try to bring back in the house this offseason. And I don't know how he hasn't earned the right to do that coming in here and giving us what he's given us. One-eyed Willie James. I would like to see Adams spell Wagner once he's healthy, more like backer on passing downs and blitzing more. I wouldn't mind that if you did it for like dime defense situations, One-eyed Willie. The one thing is if you have Adams come in there and you're even in a nickel look and they've got a guy in the backfield and they see Adams there, they might go to the run play to try to attack him with the downhill guard to get to him at the second level. And the thing that Adams is really struggling with on tape is getting off blocks. He's struggling with tackling, but he's taking these blocks on and he just can't get off them. You watch a guy like Witherspoon get off a block and it's just, he rips the guy off and he's off and he's free. Adams is out there and it's a little bit more of, it starts to look like, when wrestlers will lock up at the middle part of the stage. It's a bit like that with Jamal. And as a backer, if you get eaten up on the second level blocks like that, where you don't even impact it, and you're just getting driven back, because he's going to give up a good 70 to 80 pounds to whatever guard's trying to get downhill on him. But you're right. If you can kind of fit him into a little bit of just the passing, really knowing it's a 3rd and 9, right? Like those kind of situations, I'm with you on it. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. Travel Thank, hope we draft a quarterback for the future soon and keep and pay Geno and or Drew. I think there's a good chance one of those two does come back here, Travel Fanatic. I think it's likely at this point Geno, because the offset between the two to go to Drew, they'd have to really love Drew to want to go to Drew. If you look at what the dead money hit will be to Geno, because there won't be really a savings in going to Drew if you're only paying him $6-7 million on a 1-year deal, let's say, because there's dead money from Geno Smith coming into play, so it becomes a little negligible at that point. Okay, Jabs, it's okay to be real about PP. Oh, I agree. And I'm still in the same, this game has not changed anything in my camp from where I was before on him. I'm in the same place that I've been and will kind of be, because again, my assessment isn't just going to be based on one game, nor will it just be based on 2 or 3 games. It's going to be based on what I've seen the last 2 years and really looking at the totality of it and the big picture of it and where the team's headed and what the direction is before I make my kind of final assessment, to try to give the full time for this to breathe in the way that it needs to breathe. But, this game doesn't move me off my spot in a particular way. It's a nice, it's a great win. I love to see it. I like that we're still in this hunt, but a lot of the issues and problems that have, been there with this team were still there in this game. It wasn't like you corrected a lot of stuff across the board. Rob's Damian Lewis did play a really good game in this one. He's going to be well rated by PFF, I think, coming out of it, both in pass protection, and he was clearing the way in the ground game, especially on some of those blocks where he was coming back across the formation post snap, trying to get those wham blocks laid. He was doing good with it. Orlando, supposedly the Eagles coach was mocking Pete about calling that timeout. Oh, geez. Sirianni's kind of a live wire. You know what I mean? He's a bit of a live wire. So, he definitely toes that line where it's like, you better win, bro. You better win with that attitude, because that can grind on people quick. Travel Nature Fanatic, but it was also worthy of being kind of mocked a little bit. It's kind of silly by Pete doing that twice on one drive. Travel Nature Fanatic, Julian Love stepped up big time. Defense needed a boost badly. I loved what I saw from Julian Love. Those two were just great plays. First one playing it like the corner, second one playing it like a single high safety, making a play on the ball, tight there in coverage on the first interception first, then find ball. Just picture perfect technique. Winston, I don't think they sacked Hurts. Didn't see any blitz. Somehow worked this time, though. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to look back at the All-22 on this one in particular, Winston. Did we tighten down the zones? It's a little bit of my instincts on this are that into the second half, you brought down some of the stuff tighter. You started to play those bubble screens tighter, the shorter routes tighter. And you started to open the door up then for Hurts to look deep. And so why do you get the deep throw on Julian Love down the field in coverage? Because Hurts sees that you've got the coverage tighter up front. The throw over there to Brown, he's seeing maybe some of the coverage a little more tighter in other places, and there's just the single high safety over the top rather than a cover 2 look, and he can kind of fit it in there. So I don't know if that is the case, but that's something that my instincts tell me might be some of the case for why it did end up kind of working. The Eagles definitely got very run heavy. We got conservative. They got heavily conservative. They were definitely trying, if we were trying to kind of protect Drew Lock with our play calling, it seemed like the Eagles were definitely trying to really protect Jalen Hurts with his play calling. And he's really sick. So the kid probably was feeling nowhere near 100%. But protection is protection. And it seemed like they were trying to keep him, okay, as far as not being under too much pressure. So that was a little bit of the lack of the sacking there too, Winston, was just the amount of drawbacks in the 31 attempts here in the game from Hurts. Certainly a little bit of room maybe to go out and get a little bit more pressure, but he wasn't going to be in a high volume position in this game when you especially look at they rushed 38 times. That's quite a discrepancy in this day and age where passing is the name of the day. I said that right? Name of the day. Yeah. Rob says, tonight Pete saw a chance to bring in his vintage self by spamming the run game, which the Eagles had no answer to, which removed pressure from Drew to be the hero. Yeah, I like that they at least leaned into it. It was working. If it's going to, I don't care if it's blitzing, soft zone coverage, running the ball, passing the ball. If there's something that is working on a team that doesn't have a lot of things working, lean on into it. And they did do that. Red Ace, if Geno is healthy next week, do you see us going back or staying with Locke? I want full health, Red. I don't want Geno to be like, it's pretty good. And something that there's definitely room for, again, that continues to be room for with these quarterbacks is better utilization of their legs. But I don't want a Geno that's hindered by being immobile on the groin, where it technically feels good. And again, understanding the groin does tend to be one that you have to let it get fully healed, or else you really risk re-aggravating it. And I know we're at the end of the year. I know it's an all hands on deck kind of situation. But that being said, I would prefer going back to Locke if that is a bit of the case of what we're dealing with here. Travel Nature Fanatic, if team supports Drew and Geno, sky's the limit. Get them an offensive line that attacks up front. I think both of them are capable. Raf, sign P to an extension. K-Jab says, not a fan of the Eagles coach. Always looks grumpy. It kind of always does. So I was making this look. Pete's custom look is. His is more of the rounded. That's Sirianni to me. Brian Myers, no quarterback before round 3. I like your thinking, Brian. I like those guys in the third round. I'd be okay with it. This is not your typical third round quarterbacks you're going to get this year. You're going to have a little more juice. Winston says it was crazy. Every single thing went right at the end of the game. It did. Broke in our favor. Ball bounced our direction, so to speak. BP says, I don't want Geno starting next week. I'm all right with rolling with Locke. I don't have a dog in the fight, to be honest with you. Unless it just, I don't want injured Geno out there. Semi-healthy Geno. He needs to be full health. Kev, great win. Will Seahawks draft a quarterback with their first round pick next year? I don't know that they will draft it with the first round pick, Kev. I've got firm, non-insider knowledge, but still firm feeling that they're going to absolutely draft a quarterback inside of the first 4 rounds. Do I know where that's going to be picked at? I don't. But I do feel like you're going to come away from this draft with a quarterback that we as fans can feel excited about. So we'll just have to see. It's going to depend on a little bit of the assessment of the team and where the quarterbacks go up in that first round. But it's in consideration. The only 2 guys that are really off your table as it stands right now for sure are going to be Drake May and Caleb Williams. We'll see on Penix. We'll see on Jaden Daniels. But you'll have a lot of guys to look at. Winston says crazy 92-yard drive, 1 timeout, less than 2 minutes. Honestly, can't believe it. It was awesome. Awesome drive. Best drive of the year right there. Biggest drive of the year right there. Johnny Utah has been celebrating 7 long months as a Hawks Nest member. Thank you for that, Johnny. Says, can we enjoy this win and not argue Geno versus Drew? Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a way that I lean tonight against. And where there's going to be a lot of discussion on the Geno Drew thing. And there's going to be discussion on this still means Carroll needs to be going or doesn't. He needs to stay now. Or it's going to be 2 points that I do kind of lean away with from one, because we've talked it all to death. We know where everybody stands. The folks that are pro Genos are the pro Genos. The pro Locks are the pro Locks. Likewise with the people that are in the Carroll camps. The camps are the camps. The people are on the sides they're on with that a little bit. We don't need to sharpen our knives tonight. We've had a rough run of 4 games. And right now, after a primetime win against a tough Eagles team, a 10-4 Eagles team now, I think we just enjoy this win. Enjoy this victory, and we can turn over all those subjects and get on all those super crazy depths of that stuff, I think, for definitely another day. But we got the win. Got the win. I'm going to enjoy my win tonight. May not lead to a whole lot. May not mean much, a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but it feels good. Traveled Nature Fanatic, the personnel changes helped on defense big time. They did. The physicality was remarkably different out on the outside. And you felt it from very early on in the game, throughout the game. The tackling, the taking on blocks, there was a difference in tone in that respect of things. Linebacker says that Drew Lock post-game interview on the field was top-notch. Just below, they wrote me off, but I didn't write back, though. I'll check it out. Maybe we'll try to put it on the stream here if I could find it. Ready said, I like to think the team saw something in Drew when they traded for him. Maybe won't be our guy, but heck yes. He's a lot younger than Geno. Love the G, though. I'm a big proponent with both guys. I've never been anti either of them. I think that both of their successes can be derived from really what you're putting around them. And then it's going to be hard for both in this kind of situation coming onto this team as it's been, as at least up until this point this year, where you're really behind a bad unit as far as pass protection is concerned. But I think he's got talent that's right in line with Geno. And as Geno has developed over time and gotten better, so too, why can't Drew Lock? He's got a lot of physical ability. He absolutely does. That's why he was a second-round pick. But it's sometimes just about opportunity and chance in the right places. You know, it's great to see him pull off the win, though. Soviet Spy, I think Locke was hesitant because this was his in or out of the NFL game. First two drives stalled by penalties, and Eagles' eating clock led to a slow start. Great team win today. Hey, well said, Soviet Spy. And Cameron was saying kind of a similar thing above, which there, I guess I could definitely see there's being something to that. And I can get that. Totally can get that a little bit of why they, would look at it through that view of things. And certainly those first couple of drives for the Eagles where they were just eating a half of a quarter of clock each time, you're going, ooh, okay. How long until the defense is going to basically just be over there with their guys' hands on their hips, just he's looking at the other defensive tackles on the other sideline going, I'm here. You're on this one, bro. No, you're. I just, I already was out there. It's going a little bit like that, it felt like. But they found their way. He made it work. He made it count when you needed him to. Radu, horse, cock, lock. Mike Supra says, very nice walking. Thank you, Mike. See you. I just feel bad. Sometimes my blood gets up. It happens. That's how it is. You're wired like me. You know what I mean? It's what you do. It's who you are. That was bread. Winston, best Seahawks game in a while Monday night against the Eagles. Real fun. Hell yeah. ADL Williams. Crazy what happens when you actually throw to DK and JSN. Almost like you can out together a scoring drive. I know what you kind of meant there, ADL. I kind of know what you meant. And yeah, you can, when you feature the guys, they're going to be productive. DK's case absolutely is going to be the case. It just has to be one where you commit to utilizing him in that way. 6 targets in this game, 5 catches, 78 yards. He's got a lot to offer if you feature him that way. Jackson Smith, 4 targets, 4 catches, 48 yards. 10 targets, 9 catches between the two of those guys. Definitely you can see where they could be a dynamic tandem as we go into the future. Tyler, 8 targets, 3 catches. He had a little bit of a rough day. It wasn't always his fault on stuff. But, yeah. Winston says DK took over. You got to force it to him more somehow. I think there's some more easier opportunities in there to Winston that are just easy ones you can just try attempt to do. Him in the slot running a slant route. You know, what 5'10", 5'9" slot corner is going to be able to stay and get around DK's big body? He doesn't even need separation on those throws. You just throw it right on his body. It's a catch every time. The bubble screen that he ran, commit to the. I've not been up until this point the biggest of fans of trying to make the DK be a bubble screen guy. But at the same point in time, if you're really struggling this hard to find him those touches and targets, use that, commit to throwing one of those in a game. You know, there's 2 targets right there, easy peasy, just every game you can do that are not 9 routes or comeback routes or not him having to win on the outside or up against double coverage. Just easy targets and touches you can get him to. These are some spots that I think you can find to feature him a little bit more, but the team's got to commit to that and to commit to the creativity of that. I'd like to see him tonight. It was nice. A little bit more inside in the slot in that manner to that point. We're a little more flexibility. Burnt Herren Volk. Burnt says, Niner fan here. I think the Eagles just found that there is more to the NFC West than the Niners. Great win by Seattle. Ooh, that makes me feel good. Niner fan saying something like that. Thank you for that, Mr. Herren Volk. Says, Locke, Love, Metcalf, and JN brought it hard down the stretch. Oh, I appreciate the love from the Niner fans. How about that, Hawk fans? Got some Niner fans in here showing some love. So I always say, most part, Niner fans come in really respectful, and that's always why there's an open invite, even with our rivalry, even with you guys and your team being our nemesis. You know, doesn't mean we can't break bread every once in a while. And appreciate the love. And we're happy to get you guys the number 1 seed. I am. The Eagles got to earn that stuff, okay? They got to earn it. Fresh as F. Anyone else find the Manning brothers intolerable? Was it? Space. DK played great in the clutch, man. He was awesome. BB says, I need Shane Waldron to call a full, complete game next week, start to finish. We're going to need that from him, yeah. We got to win these next 3 games just to get in the playoffs. Then we got to need our offense to be able to bring it. And I don't know if 20 points a game is going to get it done down the stretch here as it stands. So, no. Alan A., thank you for another $2 donation and all your donations tonight. He says, all right, I'm out, Seattle fam. Said my piece. Go Hawks. Well, Alan, thank you for all of your donations tonight. I know there's been a multitude of them. Appreciate everyone. I love your thoughts on this as well. Always good to hear from you in here, and thank you for all your support on the channel. Mr. Kane, my brother from another mother, thank you for becoming a member again of the channel. Good to see you in the house. I hope you're having a great night, celebrating this win as well. Alexander says, I say start Drew Lock next week. This win probably gave him a lot of confidence, but if Geno starts, then okay. Yeah, I don't think there'll be a lot of people really married one way or the other. You're kind of like where I'm at, Alexander. You know, it's like, you know, like, honey, you want meatloaf or spaghetti tonight? I mean, whatever. Mr. Allo, DK made an insane one-handed catch on the last drive that really should have been an INT that he stole away. I forgot about that catch for a second. Yeah, it should have been, first off, pass interference. Then it was almost an interception when there was no call by the official. As he's being dragged to the ground, he just gets one big bear paw on the ball and reels it in. Absolutely sensational catch there by DK Metcalf. I mean, that was just huge. Huge. They got you a first down there, and just shows off his physicality there where he can be drugged to the ground and still be able to pull that ball in. Insane is the right word, Mr. Allo. Jim Page says, crushing it, dude. Thank you, Jim Page. Appreciate you. I love what I do, man. Sajid says, question, what would be the response in the locker room as far as the quarterback to start next week or finish the season? I don't know if there's probably a uniform opinion on that one. I think if you came down to where Geno is immobile and they showed a video of him last week, kind of gimpy, and that groin can be one that can take a little bit of time to get it quieting down. If that's the case, then I think the players would want the healthier guy. But I don't have a read from the locker room that there's a big push for necessarily Drew. And Drew's last drive was great in this game. he didn't go out there and necessarily put up some 360-yard effort. He barely crept over 200 yards. He had a 6.3 yard average per attempt, 94 rating. It's respectable numbers. It's a great, masterful final drive. But I don't know if that's going to be enough to necessarily push a full need of a locker room to feel like, we're right or, we're do or die right now. It's got to be lock, and I think that they're just going to trust where the coaches stand with that and let it roll. Devian says the way Woolen doesn't have to keep cycling in and out just to keep him on the bench. Yeah, it could make a lot of sense just going that direction with it. Defy King, you're a god at walking. Thank you, Defy. Appreciate you. Brian Myers, Eagles D with new play caller was a big help to us. I think so. I said this week, I'd on the surface of this usually be super worried and concerned if you have that DC being switched midstream, mid-year, because now all of the tendencies that you're trying to rely upon to predict go out the door and you've just got to kind of shotgun it, But when it comes to the guy being Patricia, the guy taking over, you go, I'm a little worried. Wait, who? Okay. Really? All right. Maybe not so bad, And DVN, how about those 2 picks by Love? Ballin'. Grug, why do we hate using DK? You see what happens when he gets targeted. So why not keep doing that? Imagine if he was on the Chiefs. He would be a top 5 receiver on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Yeah, the DK talk is one that on a weekly basis has given me fits for a long period of time now. And I have long said, a little bit like you intimate here, that we're not getting the most out of him. That's not a DK problem. That's a Seattle Seahawks problem. And the solution, when you have a player that you're not getting the most out of, who is truly a game-changer in talent, who is just now going into their prime, you don't offload that kind of cat. You keep that cat in-house. The pathway is to better find a way to better utilize him and his talents and his gifts. And Kansas City is a great comparison. You put DK on KC, tell me bare minimum Mahomes ain't getting 15 honey off him a year. Tell me bare minimum that's not what he's pulling on the other side of things. And if that's the case, you're not getting the most out of him. Better utilize him. Find a better approach and pathway. And there is a path here to do it, but sometimes it takes the commitment, Grug, which, on to your point in your question, has been the missing piece in this process. Why? I don't, dear God, understand why. There was one drop back in this game in particular where Drew drops back and predetermines he's going to go to Noah Fant on an out route. And they show it's like a sub all 22 shot, the sky cam shot from behind. And you see the DK's running a simple in route, Eagles dropping back to depth and coverage. And Drew forces it into the tight window throw where the window's so tight, Drew ends up just throwing it away. You can see on the throw, he sees Kevin Byard's undercutting the route. So he's just got to put it out and throw it away into the out of bounds. Whereas then if you just look to DK on the first read, the throw wide open. And there's some times there where I'll see that where they're not looking at DK on the first read at times. I know you can't do it 24/7, but when you're needing a conversion on a third down, as I think that play was, or a key, as we have at the end of this game, you're in a key moment. Work the best guy you got. Work what you got. If you're going to go down fighting with your best guy. Like we got the heavyweight on the bench, and instead we're like, let's go with the lightweight. He'll get it done for us today. Burnt says the Seahawks just made Sirianni begin his midlife crisis. Hashtag frontrunner. Alan says, I see the Lock fans hyped tonight, but they've been MIA for 8 months, though. Michael Surplus says, a lot of receivers got hit in the hands with Lock passes. Very catchable passes. DK, Lockett, what? DK had the one drop that was definitely a little low. He should have still, that's an NFL receiver, should reel that catch in. Lock did have some drop or two. The other guy I think you're looking to mention there, Mike, would be Fant, who had a bad drop in the middle of the field that the ball squirted right up into the air and could have been picked if there was a defender there. So a couple of those were out there as well. Yeah, that doesn't help matters, especially when it hits him in the hands. Ante Petrus Star Wars opening music for playoff hopes still alive. Dun 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 dun. I wish I could play it. If Disney wouldn't sue me and shut down my channel in 5 minutes, I'd totally play it. Strallo, how are we feeling about Fant? I feel very much the same way about Fant as I felt coming into this game. The Hawks, much like DK, don't really know how to utilize him at his best. He's not a bad player. He's a fairly well-rounded player. But he's a guy that's going to cost somewhere between $10 and $13 million this offseason in the free agent market. And that's not a contract that I'm willing to sign up for, understanding we don't utilize him in that capacity. So there's not as much a reason. I'd better like to put those assets in other places, in my opinion. Specifically looking to both lines of scrimmage. That's what needs to be buffed up. We've got to get the interior of offensive line right. We've got to get the interior of our defensive line right. That means we're going to have to pull that from other places where we're dumping those assets into. And it's got to be places, in my opinion, that you're not getting the returns on. So I don't dislike Fant, but just it becomes a business decision on this one. It's business. It's business. You know what I mean? Noah, I'm telling you, man, you're going to make a great deal on the open market. It's business. All right? We got to do what we got to do. You got to go be a free agent. We got to go draft a tight end. It's a beautiful thing. Forget about it. Standard champion JSN said they work on the 2-minute drill every day. It's why this offense always looks strong running it. That's probably the best thing about this offense, standard champion. I think I could make an argument for it this year. The best thing about your offense is the 2-minute drill, and when you work in those moments, and the best thing about your defense is when you're blitzing. Those seem to be the two facts of life. K-Jabs is the name people stay. B-Boy Loretto, what an amazing night. Hell of a night, B-Boy. Hell of a night. Travel says Locke didn't turn ball over. Big in Pete system. Huge. Huge. That's the big thing with Locke that he has to clean up most above anything else in his game is the turnover-worthy plays. Yeah, Cool Breeze fans just not utilized well enough, is he? Just not. Just isn't. Standard champion, if Gino even has a paper cut, I'm fine with Locke starting again. Linebacker, a good apples-to-apples comparison would be Gino versus the Niners and Locke versus the Niners. That's all I'm saying. That's fair enough to say. I'm still on my stance where I am with Gino and Locke. I like Locke's performance. I think Gino is still better if he's healthy as the option. And I think there's a good amount of proof to this particular pudding. But there's those different camps at this point, you know. And the Locke folks are feeling good tonight, you know. Gangster Vince, we're going to go to the playoffs. Gangster Vince, I love it. I'm going to call you the prodigal one, the prognosticator, the psychic in this community, and I hope you're right. So he's by using stats to evaluate Locke's performance is disingenuous. First two drives were stalled by penalties, and first half was almost over by our third drive's start. Yeah, I don't think you can ever solely base the performance just on stats. I can go to kind of some specific plays, kind of like I mentioned along the line here with Soviet Spy, the predetermining throw to the out route there on Noah Fant. Some of the wayward throws that were in there. The one there DK Metcalf had to pull back was almost an interception happening there, where there's not route separation there. You're just kind of throwing it in there and hoping DK can make some magic happen. There's some decision-making points like being in the pocket, and instead of trying to get outside the pocket before you throw away, he just kind of lazily throws the ball away and gets a grounding penalty on the back of it. I can go to some things outside the stats to point to in the game with Drew that are not great things that were along the path in there. There were some good things he did as well, and the things you mentioned about the penalties that were in there, some of the drop passes are certainly other factors with it. But that's what we get to as it being the whole tale of the day. Whole tale of the day is not the final drive. The whole tale of the day is not through the first 2.5 quarters. The whole tale of the day is all of the stats and the eye test, and when we kind of go through it. And I think he played a fine game. I'm not saying he played a bad game by any measure. But I think there's some stuff in there that you can look at as well that were him not necessarily doing a lot in there to help that offense out in some of those moments as well with some of the decision making and some of those throws. Red A says, crash for the night. Much love, chat. Thank you, Brandon. On to next week. Go Hawks. Well, thank you. You have yourself a great night. Appreciate the discussion. Nick, what's wrong with people trading him? Yeah, Nick, the trade DK talk it sometimes it's come up in the chat for me about every show I've done for probably the last 3 months, unfortunately. Travel Fanatic, Hawks 6th seed. Hawks are chasing 7th at best. 7th at best. Well, that'll put us heading out to Philadelphia for a rematch. You never know. Well, I told you all DK is the future of the Seahawks. He had to win this and in front of A.J. Brown. He got to outduel his buddy in this game. A.J. was looking like he might have him here, but DK was able to pull this one away at the end on it. So he gets bragging rights. And how about A.J. Brown trying to get all, like, A.J.'s out there lipping up with the Hawk cornerback and then runs into one of our trainers and then starts to act like the trainer pushed him. Like, chill out. Cut down on the HGH, bro. DK is the future, though, Wilbert. He ain't going nowhere. Kieran says, Hawks Nest, did I not say last night we match up against the NFC East and there was a chance? Woo, maybe. Hey, we got it done. Got it done. You called it, man. Cool Breeze says, just saw the highlights. What a mother effing catch by JSN. Hard as hell. Hard as hell. Drew put the ball in the right place you want him to put it in, where you let the receiver try to run under that ball. But he had to literally get that extra gear as the ball's in the air, where you've got to pick the speed up even a little bit extra. Because when Drew first throws that ball, that thing looks like it's an overthrow. You're going, well, I don't think JSA can get to that thing. But some of those receivers, even those receivers that sometimes have questionable speed, like JSN might have, he's got great quicks, but maybe questionable speed. They find that extra gear when the ball's in the air. When it's in the air, it's theirs. They're going to go get it. And a little bit like his one-handed catch that we saw a few weeks ago. He'll go track it down. But amazing catch. Alexander, I do like that Drew doesn't stare down DK all game long. I like how Drew went through his reads targeting different players. Don't get me wrong. I like Geno. It's just I see a difference in both quarterbacks. No, it's good to know. I like it. Little sticks, I like Locke, but him and Geno both need to cut back on interceptable passes. They cut it close sometimes. Yeah, now that I think about it, he had the one to DK, but aside from that, I think he was pretty good in this game. Drew was much improved. And even the DK one, he is being torn to the ground there. So probably anticipating as Drew that he's going to get the call. Always compete. Winning is important. Our defense was shaky in the first half. We didn't give up. We still don't. I love it. Can always compete. It's right. Stay with it. Alan, I agree, man. One game's not going to change the world. I agree. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. Can't see the downside of Eskridge as a return man. I really can't much either as well. Certainly, first and foremost, taking over the kick return duties. Maybe that means that they have to activate one extra receiver at that point, and then they would have to deactivate DJ Dallas. But for the love of God, then just line up Eskridge as a running back at that point. Why don't we just turn him into a running back? You know, and I mean, DJ Dallas is really only at this point a special team specialist as it is anyway. But they like DJ for whatever reason. And it seems like there's not much of a plan there with Eskridge at this point on how do you do anything with him. Another guy that's likely, I think, to be a candidate this offseason. See Aloha 808 says, watch from Osaka. Oh, thank you for watching from Osaka. See Aloha. Hope all is well out in your neck of the woods. And Little Sticks, Drew balled when it mattered. That's for sure. And it's where quarterbacks, you know, that's your true test. You got to go down the field. No, you're not just going to get one of those little, you're just going to get one of those little field goals. You know, you're not just going to get up to the 40-yard line and be like, oh, I did my part. I got 25 yards. No. You got to go get down it. You got to go get a tutty. You got to go get a tutty. 92 yards. Hard to pull that off. It takes some iron will there in that moment to get that done. A lot of processing you got to do in the moment to be on point. Drew did it. And Nick, yeah, I agree. Lockett, JSN, and Van had JSN didn't have a drop, Nick. He's all of his targets he caught. I think you're thinking about the DK drop early in the game that was low. Kieran says the one thing I give Drew Lock is throwing into triple coverage or to a wide open one-on-one. He's decisive and gets rid of the ball. He does. Not a lot of hesitancy tonight. He let it rip and he trusted his decision making and look, it was pretty on point for the most part. Johnny Gelato, defense won the game. You can score on the Eagles. Very hard to stop them. Got to give them a big tip of the cap for how they played, how they found their footing. See, Aloha says go to 2 quarterback system. Egos, no problem. Basically, that's why I'm saying that we need to take the Vikings out. They don't have a quarterback. So let's see right now. We've got, let's see here, NFL. We got an update on the playoff picture here. Let's go to the playoff machine. It's a machine. So the playoff machine, indeed, right now, well, it's not updated yet. We'll have to see. I don't know, how do the tiebreakers work right now, though? Oh, isn't it conference? Isn't it conference record? Our conference record 6-5. No, the Vikings conference record 6-5. So did it become a division then? Is that the tiebreakers? It goes conference division. I think that's the way it rolls. So we need the Vikings to lose. They do play the Lions twice. Now, the Lions are in a weird position here, though, because the Lions are 10-4. So they could lose this division. They got to win one of those games. But if we win out and they can just win one of those games against the Vikings, we get in the playoffs. There's your pathway right there. Pretty straightforward. I don't think space it'll be through the Rams. Like you're saying, the Rams' schedule is weak. The pathway is going to have to come through the Vikings. I think that's your game. That's your one right there. The Saints have a 4-5 conference record. That could be impactful on this too as well. If Tampa Bay can come out with the win in that division, then we would overtake the Saints because of the conference record. Our conference record would be solidified at this point, as we're likely to get one more win, which would put us at 7-5. I don't think even the Saints can potentially get to that point. Maybe they can. It's complicated. Saints got the Rams. So there's your game right there. That's just what we want to see. They got to take on the Rams and the Buccaneers. Saints got a bit of that's a tough schedule for them going forward. And we're happy either way that game goes. So it comes down to the Vikings here. Those skull bastards are the key to everything. Damn it. Long live the king. I love your thoughts on Eskridge. Thank you for that donation. Let's just put him back there as the kick returner bare minimum. Let's get some impact, you know? Let's boost where we can boost. Let's shoot some of that vitamin A, B, C, D stuff in the veins. Let's give them some of that stuff that they give those people hungover in Vegas on the streets. Michael Van Zier, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Michael. Appreciate you for that. Linebacker, I'd say lock for most of the game, and Geno in the 4th and 2-minute drives. A little split. Split it on up. Split it on up. Linebacker 54 says that slow-mo of Julian Love on the second INT was a chef's kiss from the off skiing floating into it. Yeah, I got that toe just down. The first one comes down, then comes down the foot. Great job getting him down because you're flying in there at full speed. You're jumping to high point the ball. You know, you're just trying to think at bare minimum, keep this away from A.J. Brown. I'm going to have to kind of probably wrestle with him up here midair to get this ball. You go up midair, you find that A.J.'s kind of still falling back, track backwards, just jump right in front of it. And then you got to get the feet down instantaneous quick. And he got him down. Great job on his part. He played a hell of a game overall. And a guy that, in a safety room that's not earned their money. He's earned his money this year. He's had some up and down moments, but overall he's been a solid addition. 3rd interception of the season now. He's been good as a blitzer. Pretty good overall as, I think, a tackler. But hell of a play there. Hell of 2 plays by Julian Love in this game. Scott Sports preventing the deep ball play was a big major fix in this game. It was. I think they showed that Jalen Hurts was, what was he, 0 for 4 on throws of over 20 yards in this game, including 2 interceptions. Definitely a big key. Nick, Love and Newbin would be a nice safety duo. Add in James Williams for the 3rd downs as almost a linebacker type player to specifically match up with tight ends, or just play the middle. I've heard a lot about James Williams. I got to do some looking up on him. I haven't had a chance to dive deep. I have looked at Newbin. He's maybe my favorite safety in the draft, Nick, so sign me up with Tyler. I love watching him play. And with Julian Love and Newbin, you would be having guys that certainly could fit into a system where they can do everything you need the safety to do. Single high, 2 high, come down in the box. Both would have the capability of bringing that to play, which would help you in a lot more in the unpredictable nature and how you'd like to maybe run the safety position. Well, just imagine having Spoon tonight and Woolen. A healthy Woolen. Spoon would have been great. Sam Hutchinson, Quandary Dig stepped it up today. I think he knows his time is about up here. I saw a good amount of effort of him. Nice to see him up more around the box at times in this game, able to maybe impact the game a little bit closer down there rather than just always dropping to supreme depth. But I thought he played maybe his strongest game of the season, did Diggs in this one. He was there in coverage. He was there in the running game. When he came up to tackle, he brought the guys down. Yeah, well spotted on your part. Thought he played well. Scott Sports, did Reed get benched tonight? I don't know if it's benching or if it's as much an accommodation for the shoulder injury. This is the only people that can know are behind closed doors. Is Tariq Woolen not tackling well this year because the shoulder is going to require surgery and it's in just kind of bad shape, so he can't really wrap up? Or is it an effort problem? Or is it just like the shoulder's a little sore, but he just doesn't, the commitment isn't there. It's a former wide receiver playing cornerback and he just doesn't have the want and the grit to be the tackler there. I don't know on that one. I think it's the injury a little bit affecting things mainly. I don't think he's the best tackler anyway, being a player recent to the position as far as the change goes. But we'll have to learn about whether or not he has any kind of surgery at the end of the year. I think that will tell a little bit of the tale here. Like Spoon moved to more of an enforcer like Cam. Gets to kind of do a little bit of that as sometimes in the slot in there. But moving around might be a smart approach going in the future. Johnny Utah says Diggs isn't bad. He's just overpaid. I think that's a good summation of it. Scott Sports, what has gone on with Reek is he hasn't been as good in coverage as last year, but he still has been good in coverage. Yeah, he's been overall solid, and he's been fine in coverage. His issues come into tackling, getting off blocks. That's where he's not on the field right now, I think, because of that, as much as anything. But is the shoulder impacting him on that or not? I don't know on that. Lions Mania, Mina Khan's a huge Seahawks fan. Indeed, she is. Mina's awesome. Lord Boom, Brandon, I will be the first to say it. Jalen Carter is a monster. We would have been fine drafting him too, laughing out loud. I'm glad we got Witherspoon, but Jalen Carter is a beast. Jalen's a good player. Jalen's a really good player. I'm happy with Witherspoon. I'm okay with the Hawks' decision. I think there's a lot that went into that process. I think they were thorough in their background check on both these guys and their outlook on both these guys. And I think both guys are going to be players in this league and 2 of the better players coming maybe out of this draft entirely. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a good player. But I'm happy with Witherspoon. Alexander Brandon, let's say Geno's 100%. Who do you want, Drew or Geno? I would go with Geno Smith. Remember, we've just gotten Abraham Lucas back in at right tackle. And when you did do that, you had a game against the Cowboys where he's throwing for 360 out there. I do think they're kind of close together in what they bring to the table, but I do still have my more favorable outlook to Geno if all things are being equal and health is all good. Always can beat Geno as a shooting guard, playing point guard, Locke's a natural point guard. I like the comparison on that. That's awesome metaphor there. Flipping flapjacks. I remember when Wilson had that thumb injury and Geno was playing well, back him up. Well, Wilson rushed that comeback and we lost 17-0 to Green Bay. Yeah, he definitely came back too soon. Too soon. Scott Sports, what's my thoughts on Russ? I think that there's a lot of people that have a lot of support and love for Russ that sometimes gets superseded by what really is seen on the field at this point in the player he is right now. Not in what he was, but if we're talking about the assessment of what he is right now on the field. Has he had a bounce back season versus last year? Yeah, he's had a bounce back season statistically speaking. Do I have a pretty firm belief at this point that the Denver Broncos are going to release Russell Wilson inside a week after the end of the football season? Yes. I do believe that that's going to happen. And if I'm wrong on that, I'll eat some crow and say, okay, Payton saw enough to believe that this step forward he took last season in Wilson can continue to be built upon. And I need to relook at my outlook on this. I might be wrong with it. It's the way I feel with it. It's the way my outlook is with it. I think that he's tried to slide back into his old manners of, doing a lot of under center stuff, a lot of play action from under center, a lot of leaning into the ground game at times, then bringing safeties up in the box, taking your shots over the top. He's found some ability to flourish back into that, roll with that a little bit. But again, that is not a recipe of him. That's not a recipe. That's not an outcome of him advancing in his approach. That's not him now getting better as a quarterback, being taken to school by Sean Payton and earning his doctorate degree. That's him leaning back into the old. So people are very quick to overstate this Russell, reclamation as being one of proof positive that maybe in essence we might have, if not lost the trade, it's more of like an even Steven deal when, in my opinion, no, it's not. And that will be exemplified by the fact that Russell Wilson won't be on the Denver Broncos roster 2 weeks after the season ends. Because you can say Russell's having a bounce back year. You can try to take a look at those stats as the bottom line. Say, we'll see what the stats show and see they got these wins here. But the bottom line will come back to the fact that the Broncos will eat all of that dead money in order to avoid having him stay on the roster. Because the key point of it being a week after the end of the season is Russell is due more money. The big contract that he's already signed that's just kicking in, he's going to be due another increased roster bonus if he's on the roster a week after the season ends. Do the Broncos want to sign up to go pay Russ more money now? Do they want to further embed themselves in the Russell Wilson experience? I don't think they're going to. Could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to. And I've felt pretty firmly about this for a while and watching it. It is good to see Russ do what he's doing. And maybe there's even a weird, as I've said, there's a Twilight Zone way that this could work, where you have Carroll staying in Seattle, you have Wilson get released by the Denver Broncos a week after the year, and the Seahawks end up making overtures to Wilson to come back, which I don't think is going to happen, but there's a bizarro world where I could see it kind of going down. T-Favor says, that the loudest I've heard that stadium in 5 years, that last drive by Philly. Ooh, great to hear, T-Favor. You get us prime time and liquored up. We got some opera level lungs out there in that stadium. Johnny Utah Diggs was just forced to make a lot of game-saving tackles during the losing streak, which means everyone else didn't do their job. He's not terrible, but he's not playing up to his money either. No, that's a great way of putting it, Johnny, and that's the way I look at it as well. I don't have the same shade I'd put on Jamal Adams I wouldn't put on Quandre Diggs, but this is as much about team building conceptually and smart way of putting your money. And is it smarter to be paying a top 10 free safety who's giving you bottom 40 impact, or take that money and put it in the defensive line or offensive line or somewhere else on the team? Always compete. Penix or Nix in the third round. Michael Penix is not going to allow us. Neither of those players always compete is going to last to the third round. Bo Nix has a ceiling in this draft of not getting past the end of the second round. And in Michael Penix, I'm outside of there being some sort of medical red flag that pops up, he'll be a first-round player and probably a top 20 player at that. Lord Boom, Brandon, the experts have Daniels from LSU going to Seattle probably. I could see it. I could certainly see it, Lord Boom. He's the kind of quarterback that Schneider certainly would gravitate towards. Is he going to last to our selection? We're now 7-7. I mean, we're more, looks like, we're going to beat probably the Cardinals. I know I'm not trying to give us that win, but, we're probably likely at least win one of these next two games. That puts you about 15th, 16th. I think he's going top 20, but all it takes is for him to run a 4.5 40 and have a great pro day, and suddenly he's a top 10 pick. The weird part about the quarterback assessments as you get into the draft on this stuff is guys get bumped up as you go through the process. Unless there's that red medical flag thing, tends to be the way it is. And with Daniels, he's certainly going to be a guy that's going to go up in the first. He will go in the first round at this point. I don't know how high he goes yet. I don't have a firm track on that. Some of this is I haven't done the deep dive on these guys, but he does look like a first round quarterback at this point. So he buys his draft offensive line, linebacker, cornerback, and re-sign lock. I struggle on the re-sign lock part, Soviet Spy, because you do have to incur $17 million of dead money if you move off from Geno Smith. So if you sign Drew Lock to a 1-year, $6 million deal, and then you're moving off on the $17 million anyway, and Geno's going to cost you $30 million, you're really only saving $8 million to move off from one to the other. It's not kind of like it would look on paper where it's like Geno's first making 30, 31, and Drew's only making 6. So, is Drew 1/5 the player of Geno? No, but it's not really that way because the dead money does factor into that decision a bit. But I'm good with the rest of your list. I love the rest of it. Eric Knupp, we saw a lot of lock tonight. I believe here into a full week of practice, another game. I'm good with either way here. I'm a good either way. Alan said, Brandon, I had my knife sharp, fam. Let's go. Henry Diesel, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you, Henry. Russ was getting yelled at by Payton this past game. Yeah, he's. It speaks to, I think, a little bit of the level of frustration I can only imagine Sean Payton having. A lot of people had prognosticated to me at times that Sean Payton would be the perfect ideal coach for Russell Wilson. And I think if I were to make a guess here, and a guy that studied Russell Wilson's game considerably, the frustration that comes into play on this and having to coach Russell is that you can scheme something up to be open that should be on time, that's right there, make the throw, and Russell will kind of double clutch that a bit at times and not go to that read. And I know that situation has been talked about. Maybe it's on Payton and maybe not, but it does speak to a level of frustration that I think partly Payton has set in with Payton as he's gotten a clear understanding of what Russell Wilson is as a quarterback. And it's not that he's just outright bad as a quarterback. It's just that if you're going to try to fit him in the confines of a system and operate within a system and on time, he's not really going to give you that. And that's going to drive offensive coaches crazy. If you had ever tried to pair, for instance, Mike Holmgren with Russell Wilson, as many people have talked about at times to me doing, I think Mike Holmgren would have been driven nuts by Russell. Because it's frustrating when I scheme something open. It's there. It's what we talked about during the week. It's right there. Now go hit the throw. And you're double clutching and trying to pirouette out of the pocket and improvise. And I think that there's a testament to that. But that's also where I come into my bottom line on this being, Henry, that's after the weekends of the season, them looking to move on and cut at that point. That's Payton saying, I'm not trying to sign up for this in the long term as an experience or embed myself further with this experience. I've seen enough to know what I need to know at this point. And Russell is starting to get older. The athleticism that he was able to fall back on this year by getting a little bit lighter in the offseason and losing a little bit of weight is not going to be there forever for him as he's now moving in through his middle 30s and heading to the wrong side of 30s. And you are going to lose that extra step, so to speak. But thank you, Henry. I appreciate that donation. And hope you're having a good night, brother. Scott Sports, if you've watched Daniel's film, he plays a lot like a young Lamar. Yes, he does. I like his throwing motion, Scott Sports, better than Lamar. He's got a much more natural delivery. And yes, especially when he's doing that, running at full speed, come to a stop, get back up to full speed thing. He's got a lot of shades of Lamar to his game when he's like that. But as a natural thrower of the ball, the ball comes much more better out of his hands to me than it does with Lamar. Or sometimes Lamar just feels to me like a receiver throwing a football. Yeah. It's coming out. It'll come out as a spiral. It will come out with some velocity, but it doesn't feel quite always natural. Brian Tabor says the Seahawks lost tonight. This chat room would have been on fire. Yeah, it would have been an angry place. I can't deny. I'm glad we got the win. As I said, I think the Hawk fans base kind of needed this one just a little bit. We all could have used this one just a bit, I'm sure the team could as well. Holy Hand Grenade says, B, what happened to the link at the end of the Bleacher Report stream? You know what? What happened was I usually prep up in advance and get the link pasted in. And I didn't. So I'm going to actually, you guys don't mind on this one. I'm just going to paste it in the comments. If you guys want to look for the quick game wrap up thing that I did a little half hour. I've been doing this throughout the season, just doing a half hour deal over on the Bleacher Report. I'll put this into the chat. Hold on, give me just a second. That's a great suggestion, by the way. I'd like, if you guys can, get over there and if you could, show the love, show up over there, give them the good stats from us, because it helps me continue to be able to do this into the future. Bleacher Report. Not that I'm asking you guys to head anywhere here, but just that you guys go in there and show up, and it definitely helps out. So, put the link to the show there. Let me paste. Let me pin this. Why won't you let me pin this? Yeah, but there's a link in there to the show, and if you guys get a chance, you do have to download the app, but would really appreciate if you guys get a chance to do that, as it will definitely help me out with them into the future on keeping up this gig, as I would love to do it. Beneficial. Very beneficial. I'll also put that, if you're listening to this in postgame on replay, I'll put that down as well in the comment section after the show tonight. But yeah, Holy Hand Grenade, I was kind of working on getting my computer fixed here for the last week. I've been in computer hell. So I finally got through the woods last night, but that put me behind the ball on some things here on the other side of it. Scott Sports, it's hard to know the truth, but there is no denying he did wonders for the Seahawks team. Russ? Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to feel like I know it sometimes feels like it's shading Russ. I have nothing against Russ personally, or I don't hate. He's to be revered in our Hawk history, and he helped to get us a Super Bowl win. And, I don't want any of that to ever be overlooked. It should never be overlooked. But, when it comes to assessing him as a player, as I sometimes have to do, I got to put on the analyst hat with that a little bit. And when you do watch a player for a good 10-year period, you get a pretty good feel about who he is, and what he can do, what he can't do. And with Russ, I have a very good feel about who he is as a player. And he's still a player that can provide some value on the field. I could argue if you're going to pay him $50, $55, $60 million, that's a different conversation. But I do feel like I have a pretty good view of at least who he is and what he does as a player. Kieran says, Russ thinks even if you watch Harry Potter, you're going to hell because it's about witchcraft. Oh, Mr. Kane, too. Good to see my brother from another mother in the house. Jason Tudor, 2 factors in Locke's yardage, about 50 yards in PI calls that likely would have been caught, and 2 massively long Eagle drives in the first. Fair points. Very fair points. Scott Sports, I don't know about that Alex Smith. He took Sierra's kid with future and was a true father to him. Yeah, he's been a good dad. Russ is a good person. I don't have anything against him as a player on it. I mean, anything against him as a player. Snap out of it says, whatever, Niners want the first seed in the bye. Whatever. Mr. Game Hawks Nest just made it from the game. Voice is gone. Hell yeah, you did your part. People were just saying tonight, it's as loud as they've heard it in a great deal of time. Mr. Canes, you helped to galvanize that team to victory. But I knew that my family would be on chopping it up. Go Hawks. What a fun game. You know how I do out here, man. I love what I do. I love being with my people. I gotta get a feel for where everybody's head's at, you know. But great job out there tonight, Mr. Kane. You brought it, but I'd expect nothing less. I'd expect nothing less. Gene D's on Drew Lock train. He says he should start every game. Mr. Kane says my account got hacked, so I had to update my payment option. A lot of that going on around out there, Mr. Kane. Head on a swivel with that kind of stuff. I'll tell you what. My passwords are about 39 characters long at this point. I'm entering in hieroglyph symbols to try to encrypt my stuff further. Have a great day, says Spaghetti. I'd agree. I'd go spaghetti over meatloaf too. Meatloaf is a useless option that should be removed from the human palate. Johnny Utah Lockett's fine, but like Bobby, age is catching up. Still a gamer and plays with heart, though. Yeah. He's not prime lock anymore. And you've got GSN to sort of offload him over the next year. I still think he's not one of those guys on the chopping block this offseason. But after this next year, still can provide, though, a part to this team, a helpful part to this team, and rounding out that receiving core. And you have a good mix. You got your guys that can block, and DK and Jake Bobo. You've got in JSN and Lockett some route runners that can get open against corners that can't cover those kind of players. Will Valdez, Brandon, if the Hawks finish 10-7 and make the playoffs, would you consider this a successful building season overall? The success is going to be based upon the update, evolution, adaptation, modernization of both the offense and the defense. If the offense is going to be stuck in a mold of where it's going to hammer A and B gap runs, and then it's got to take 9 route shots over the top, that doesn't work for me. If the defense is going to refuse to ever blitz and continue to drop into soft zone coverage, refuse to essentially on both sides of the ball change their ways in the way that they talked about, Will, saying that they needed to change it 2 years ago. I'm just asking them to stay true to their word. That's all I'm asking Carroll to do. Stay true to your hirings. Stay true to your word. Stay true to the updates that you yourself said you intended to make. If that's what I get to see off the end of this year, come 10-7, 9-7, 7-10, if I see that, that's the part that instills confidence in me. Because it is, to me, the coaching problem at the head of this. And that is the biggest problem at the head of the coaching problem. There are other coaching issues like undisciplined football, the use of timeouts, game management. Yeah. But that's there at the head of it. And so that's the part I really need to see to find myself the confidence. But I will give them through the full year to find that footing, even if it's to come at the end of the year. It's like, well, the last 4 games, they tightened down the zones. They showed more of a willingness to blitz. Offensively committed to doing some more varied things, finding a way to feature in DK a little more. These things, I'm going to have a little bit more, a little more confidence with it at that point. So it's less about just getting the wins or losses, Will, and more about the pathway to getting to those wins and losses. Because there's been a little bit of a vein of how you've gone through your games this year, win or lose. And it's a process I haven't particularly always liked. Mr. Dog says, get off his groin, bro. BP says, Brandon. Sorry, speaking of Brandon. Chris Asorno. Well done, Sea Chickens. You did us a solid. Maybe we'll whoop your asses again in the playoffs. Oh, no, you get that confidence right now. I like that confidence. The confidence that'll just have you dropping your guard just a little bit. And the second that guard drops, here comes the nut shot. I'm talking right between the two. We're going to separate those suckers. It's a street fight. There are no rules here. Not in the playoffs. Gene D, Shane calls some conservative run plays after we got a first down. He needs to open up the playbook. That's the result things we're talking about, less than the wins and losses. That's the thing I want to see here. A playbook that looks more akin to what we see from the Rams and less akin to what we had in 2017, 18, 19 as an offense. Mr. Kane says, Hawks Nest, what do you think of the play calling in this game? To Gene D's point, I think that it was very conservative, not just in the running game, but also in their passing attack. I think that Shane Waldron was trying to protect Drew Lock from making those boneheaded throws that he has a tendency to make. And so he kind of kept him in a bit of the box. They finally let him out of that box at the end, Mr. Kane, but that doesn't remove from the fact that that's where you kind of had him for a large part of this game. Now, he did well within that. Within that structure, Drew Lock did basically his job. There are some parts in the game that I think we can still kind of go at with him and go, okay, this wasn't the best. That wasn't the greatest. This was a little bit off there. Not that these were huge imperfections in his game today, but that they were parts that we can't just look at and go, well, he just played really good in the box. He just did what they allowed him to do. There was also some points in there where there's some unforced errors and poor decision-making within that. But overall, he played a fine game, and that drive at the end, as I say in my title, Mr. Kane, I think that was a masterful final drive executed by Locke. Picture perfect. His pace, his speed, being under control as he was, taking the time to read the defense, and then the throws that he made, all working just perfectly together there at the end. Abel says DK would reach 2K with Mahomes. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to overstate my argument too hard, Abel, but I thought it. I thought it big time. Barry Satoro, thank you for the $10 donation. And thank you, Barry, for all your donations tonight and throughout this season. It's been very kind of you. It says, bro, Holmgren had a history of spazzing out over Matt's improvising. Mike would have either had a stroke on the side or strangled Russ on the sideline, Homer Simpson style. Yeah, if Matt took 3 steps off script, Holmgren was not a happy camper. What the hell are we doing here today? What are we doing out here today? Russ would have definitely put him in a cardiac kind of place. That would have definitely not been what, Mike's game with it. And it's these you see it with Shanahan and Purdy, and that's why Shanahan loves Purdy. Purdy's operating his offense the way I tell you to do so. Right? Do it the way I say. They look at themselves and understand that they're smart enough to make it happen by their intellect, by their understanding of the game, by their approach offensively speaking. Good offensive coordinators are just kind of wired this way. A sense of, maybe even you could call it a bit of arrogance, healthy kind of arrogance that you need to have in that offensive play caller that operates that way. But if he's guiding his symphony, and he's going through the strings and he's going through the horns, and then he gets over there to the drummer and he starts putting in a lot of extra fills. Every time he's going back to the drummer, and he's going, that's a little where you'll start to piss off the conductor. He's going to get a bit mad and start to maybe break his stick because you're messing his thing up. You're messing his control. They want that control over the part of it. And I think you got to make the argument with Russ. That's why I think he was always a great pairing with a guy like Carroll that wasn't necessarily an offensive-minded guy who could give a little bit of more of an opening to the improvisation. And that's why you got the top end out of Russell's career that you got, I think, in those teens when he at times could flirt with being an MVP candidate, because Carroll wasn't going to try to, rein in the wildness. He will lean into it. But most offensive coordinators, that's not how they're wired. When Payton first gets in there, it's going to be a little bit of what he first got in there this year with Denver. Okay, let's see what he does best. Let's try to lean into that, while we're also building him up on the stuff we want him to do within our game. But when he's not doing that other stuff, I think that's where those frustrations start to bear out a little bit in regards to Payton and Wilson. But that's hilarious. Yeah, definitely. And Matt, I laugh as much, Barry, because of course Matt wasn't like the greatest of improvisers. As Holmgren once said about Matt, when he tries to start to move around in the pocket, it's like a giraffe moving on ice. And that's, it certainly was true. So Matt pretty much was going to stay in his little box there in the pocket. But when he would try to get a little spicy, because every once in a while Matt thought of himself as Michael Vick, that definitely would kind of send a little bit of Holmgren into, do it as it was called. Do it as it was called. Brandon Janis is glad to finally enter this stream after a win. Hawks, baby. Hey, we got the dub. Let's go. Hawkaholic, I was at the game, and it was an amazing finish. Well, Hawkaholic, Mr. Kane, great job. From everything I'm hearing in the chat is you guys did an awesome awesome job in that stadium. It feels like we've had a little bit of a bounce back this year. I got to say, from what I'm hearing from fans that have been in the stadium and listen on TV and being in there, there's a little bit more of a feedback I'm hearing that maybe we're getting back to reclaiming a little bit of our breath in that stadium, impacting the game a little bit more like we used to do so. Johnny Utah says, it's just haterism. People are jealous of DK's 28 pack, so when he blocks too hard, the haters make it seem like he's the worst. It sometimes makes me wonder if it's that a bit, Johnny, with a guy that has been so productive and good for you. He's having one of the best starts for a receiver in NFL history, if you look at him. I know it doesn't look like that because he hasn't given you that 1,700 yard season where he's just dominated week in and week out, but he just quietly is getting it done. Snap out of it. Brandon, have you worked on your Nick Cage impression? I've tried. Face off. I can't get him. He's such a hard tone because there's not that one thing you can go to. He's got a little bit of the California Cano thing going on, but then you start just sliding into Cano. Whoa. I'm trying though. I try him out every once in a while. Alexander says, people will be up all night pissed that Locke threw the ball twice down the middle. Sorry, Pete Boy. Eric Knupp, to me, it seems that this team responds better to Locke than to Geno. I wish we did less of the trick plays, too. I think we should also look into a true left guard. We're of like mind, I think, for the most part on this one. I don't know on the Locke or Geno one. I don't have a feel myself on that part of it. But sometimes, yeah, we do get a little bit too extra tricky when we can just straightforward beat the guys at what we want them to do. Left guard, to me, though, to your final point, is the most important thing of what you said. I would love to see that as a big priority target this offseason. I doubt you're going to be able to really get it done in free agency because I don't think I've seen anybody in free agency coming up as a left guard that's going to be viable outside of a guy that's really long in the tooth and doesn't have a lot left to really give you as a player. But when it does come to going into the draft, Eric, there are some tantalizing options in the top 50 and a multitude of them at that, and options that weren't as good of options as last year in the draft in the top 50. So uniquely suited in that way. And if they would make it a priority and go for one of these guys, it would be a very, I think, pretty safe pick to go after. Pretty high level of floor that you're getting on all of these guys and what they bring. And some of them even give you some good positional versatility to being able to, in a pinch, play out there at tackle if you need, and as well left guard. So I'm with that. Sign me up. Red Ace says, I'm teasing you, bro. Don't die on the Meatloaf Hill. I feel like that was a 70s hit. Meatloaf Hill. Brandon Janis says, pork, steak, chicken, hawk. Served up some eagle tonight, baby. Woo! Let's go, baby. Alexander says, Geno's crotch is rocked. Oh, Lordy. King Bomber, what's up, brother? Says, well, we won this game, so goodbye to tanking, and we have to win out. This was the game that decided the rest of the season. If we won, we need to win out. If we lose, we need to lose out. But we won, so let's make the playoffs. We might have a chance if we can dodge San Fran. Yeah, maybe San Fran gets, one of those weird games. The ball just bounces every funny direction. It's like angels in the outfield on a football field, It's going in for the catch to Debo. The ball wildly swings away due to that San Francisco wind, sending it right into the hands of the waiting safety back there. But that's always why you say, King Bomber, why they say you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. That's why I always say if I have a fighting chance, if I'm still in it, if I can throw one single punch from the floor while my other arm is broken, while my ankles are flopping along and not even on their axis or whatever, on their rotation anymore, I'm swinging that punch. We don't tank here. We don't do that here. King Bomber Drew had no bad passes this game, not going to lie. There's a couple passes in there. The throw to Charbonnet, when Charbonnet's cutting across the field, he's missed him by 10 yards. The throw that's technically isn't, and I'll give it as a legit drop on DK. It's still a throw that's at his feet. It should be up here. It's not a great throw. There's a throw DK on the post route at the end of the game where DK's got to dive and make an incredible catch down there to go make the play. There's a couple. There's the intentional grounding, which was kind of unforced and silly. But again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm picking apart Drew's game. He played a good game. He was fine for what they asked him to do. Grandizer 12, Brandon, congrats on the win. It is a Festivus miracle. Seahawks won the feats of strength. Eagles can do the airing of grievances. Ha! Hashtag let's go 12. Well, we've had nobody come in from an Eagles fan standpoint to necessarily point to like officiating or anything else. I think they're taking it pretty solidly right on the chin and accepting it for what it is. But we got it done, Grandizer. That's the bottom line. It feels good. Sanders Champion, did anyone hear Carter's name tonight? He caught a flag maybe. Can't remember. I'm not sure on the flag. He did get the sack on Drew Lock, which was the play where they challenged the play on Drew where he looked like he was able to throw it away at the last second. But instead it was ending up being a sack. Let's take a look at his final line. To your point, I don't remember him showing up a lot in many other places in this football game. So, Jalen Carter, 1 tackle, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hit. So, what's Charles Barkley call that? A quadruple single? That's what we'll call Jalen's day. The quadruple single. Gave you a little bit of flash, but it certainly wasn't some dominant presence throughout the game that was like, see, you should have picked me. See, you messed up. You done messed up. Radu says, hey, Brandon, you should watch the lock and review on live. That would be sick. Yeah, we might watch it here before we go. I got to make sure, Radu, if I do that stuff, I don't get my stuff claimed. So I got to always be careful. Usually I cut it up and chop it in a bit so don't have the Hawks coming and going, I don't think they would, but you never know. Gibson, need to play with a sense of urgency, eliminate the mistakes, establish the run, and take some shots down the field. I'd like to see that too. I'd like to see a little bit more. Let's let it rip, Radu says, Locke absolutely led the team today. He looked like a leader out there on those sidelines. Did a great job. Impressive performance. Impressive performance for sure. In space, how about Locke throwing that block for K9? Not too bad. Gene D, are there any good quarterbacks who contracts up next year? Well, I mean, if you're talking about this offseason, Gene, you've got Cousins, theoretically, if you want to bring him in on his Achilles leg. That's a possibility, I suppose. But nothing that I've looked at and seen so far that stands out to me as far as somebody that's a real, that wouldn't be just merely somebody that you look at as a retread. Everybody's pretty locked in at this point. I mean, Jared Goff's contract situation with the Lions is maybe one to watch. Dak has kind of reset himself there with Dallas. I think they're back to being okay with his contract. So I don't see much of anybody. Not going. Gary and McKay says, opera level lungs, laughing out loud, try heavy metal lungs, B. All right, heavy metal lungs. I take that back. I take that back. Radu says, did you mention already Woolen was probably benched today from previous performances? Yeah. I don't know which of it is. This is the hard part about the Woolen thing, Radu, is he's got a shoulder injury going on. Is it one that's going to require surgery? Is it preventing him from tackling? His main issue this year hasn't been covering. It's been really tackling. And is it hampering his game overall? My guess is that it is quite a bit. I'm not saying it's an end-all be-all excuse for him. I don't think he's already a naturally good tackler. It just sort of compounds the issue for him when he's got the shoulder injury going on. And that would give me a little bit of a measure of patience for him on this. But the bottom line is it's probably better for him to sit if that's the case. You need more of the physical presence out there that was brought by Mike Jackson in this game. Taking on blocks, tackling, just being more physical out there. We need more guys being more physical. And that's what we got in this game, I think. Benelli says, just got off the rig. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, Benelli. GD6KJ writes, hilarious. He calls out Seahawks players by name when we play like trash. He does. I like that about him doing that. He's embracing the analyst role that he's taken on, and that's what you got to do. KJ should have no chill. I'm glad he doesn't. He'll be a better analyst for it. And Kieran, Michael, and Artie Burns played a great game. Great game. Brandon Janis says, yeah, I'm pretty sure Quandary knows he's under fire. Decent game for him tonight. Yeah, it was. I think maybe the best game of the season for him. And Michael Jackson played with a lot of fire tonight. Great to see. ENC says, oh my God, I'm so dang hyped. Let's run the table and win a freaking Super Bowl. I wanted to cry after winning tonight. Let's go. I love the energy, Ian. Let's go. It's a great win, man. Maybe potentially saved the season or saved even some hope from this season. And it's a big win. Johnny Toss says, Carter tossed Bradford like a step kick. He's a beastly. Carter's upside is going to be big going in the future, and he's going to be a good player. He is. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Rapa says, you think the Broncos would draft a quarterback? I think Sean Payton's going to understand the value of an offensive line proper. It was at the head of what you saw with them with Drew Brees is, yeah, they always had Drew, and yeah, you always had a kind of assembly of playmakers on the outside. Never really the star, but a lot of guys that could get it done. Devery Henderson, and Marquez Colston, and you go through the list, right? Joe Horn at one time. Always good guys, never the sensational guy. They'd always have kind of like that, those Green Bay receiver kind of like receiving cores, absent of Devontae Adams. But what's always was at the head of the stack for the New Orleans Saints is that they trusted their offensive line and trusted that they were going to put the investment into it. They always would go into their drafts and continually can beef it up and add more into it. And if they lost a guy, they were going to go. If they lost a Teron Armstead, they're going to come back and take whoever that big kid was that they took in the first round 2 years ago to replace him. They're always putting that investment in it. And I think what Payton's going to do is a little bit of a page out of the book that I always say is the proper way to go with this proper, which is that you get the offensive line in place first, you get your scheme in place first, then you go get the quarterback. You know, you get him in a position of whoever takes over then as that rookie will be able to kind of handle the duties back there and take care of things in that way. Now, could Sean fall in love with one of these QBs and determine in the first round, that's my guy, let's go? Maybe. Or even the second, third round, maybe. But I think he's going to put a little bit more of an onus, especially with the restriction of the first round picks they've had in recent years, to probably building up a little bit more of that offensive line. It needs help, especially in the pass protection. They've got some guys that haven't been playing too bad. Quinn Miners has really started to develop well for them, but it could use some help. It could definitely use some help. King Bomber says there could have been a few PI called and some unnecessary roughness calls too. There could. I will give what I liked about the officials in this game when it came to the secondary calls is that they were consistent with it. So, you know, you were kind of letting things get a little bit free and clear for the most part. It was going to take a lot to draw a flag, and they were fairly consistent on that on the other side of the ball. You know, when Julian Love got that first interception, as they showed on the replay, he technically gets his hands in there and gets himself a handful of jersey. It didn't impact the play, but he did do it. But they were making those ticky-tack kind of calls out there, and at least they was on both sides of the ball pretty. All I ask for is if it's not by the letter of the law, that at least you call it both ways. Equal. You know what I mean? And yeah, there was Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox got a sack as well. King Bomber. Technically 2 sacks total, Hawks with no sacks in this game. Winston says, why would the Broncos cut him? And then who's going to be the quarterback, Broncos quarterback? That's not, there's not a lot of good ones out there. Winston, they already told you who the certain guy is that they would go for as far as the release goes, because they're on this big quarterback contract that they signed to Russell Wilson, and then they signed a 2-year deal to Jarrett Stidham. They gave their backup quarterback, upper-level quarterback paid money, Winston, as the backup there. So Stidham comes in. He would take over for Russell Wilson this next year. Sean Payton would understand that he's going to have to clear the chamber as it is anyway, right? The dead money of Russell Wilson that you have to sustain as it is means you have to kind of just get through that a bit to get to the other side where you're then truly ready to be that competitor. I think that that's going to be a bit of his assessment and his outlook of it. So he goes with Stidham, drafts maybe a guy in the second, third round of this draft to come in and compete with Stidham. Doesn't mean that that's going to be the quarterback of the future at that point. I think look to get back that offensive line in place so that he can put an offensive line on point that can then allow his quarterback to flourish, which then can allow for his offense to flourish. And I think he's going to be driven, he's been a good coach about paying attention to both sides of the ball, but I think more often than not, Payton's going to be driven to want to create a good offense first and foremost. So that's why I think they're going to do that. And again, the key point on this, Winston, is that if there's a roster bonus that comes into effect on Russell Wilson after a week of the offseason, first week of the offseason. If he's on the roster, if Russell Wilson is a Denver Bronco 8 days after the end of the season, the roster bonus kicks in, which means, Winston, the Broncos have to sign up for more money of Wilson. We're going from it, making it going to be harder then in the future to extricate themselves from him if that's what they want to do. So it's kind of that's decisions sort of drawn them, that's sort of making this more of the urgent decision than it would be absent of there no roster bonus. The money on the hook is the money on the hook. And you're just sort of making that decision on as it stands on those grounds. That roster bonus is the key part of why I think he's going to be cut. Johnny Utah, I'm hoping we go interior offensive line, defensive tackle, linebacker, safety, 3 picks, taking a Rattler or Pratt in the 4th. Boy, I don't think Rattler is definitely not going to last till the 4th. I don't think. I could be wrong on that. But I like all of your suggestions, Johnny. Let's go. I'm with all those guys. Red Ace, I like yours too. Yeah, definitely places where we need to concentrate on. Dio Brando, it says Titans next. We got winnable games coming up. Got to win out to make the playoff run? Possibly. Going to have to win out. Going to have to get 2 road wins. Though the stage is not set up badly for you to pull that off. Specifically the Titans, I don't know if we're going to get Levis. We'll see which quarterback we're going to play. They're not necessarily been the best of teams this year, though they're going to be a tough matchup. 10 a.m. on the road. Ain't going to be an easy one. But then you've got the Steelers, who may or may not have Pickett as well, and certainly are as well, not having having again another like Titans a little bit up and down, not necessarily the easiest of seasons going along so far. Roxanne Roll is in the house, and thank you for that $10 donation, Roxanne. It's great to see you. Says this game became an emotional roller coaster. If coasters had one long slow up toe and one ultra steep drop and sharp twist left turn before a sudden stop at the exit point. That's all it was, Roxanne. And everyone got off the ride going, where everyone else in line's like, was it good? Did you guys, are they supposed to look like they're in shock and fear at the same time? Aren't they supposed to be smiling? It was a little bit like that, right, Roxanne? But you came out with the dub, and that's what matters most. And hey, this is what we've come to expect. This is Seahawks football. They're always going to, usually on games, even you're going to win, you're going to be on the edge of your seat. Ain't no easy wins out here in the Pacific Northwest. We gotta make everyone sweat a little bit. Gotta make them sweat a little bit. Thank you so much, Roxanne. It's good to see you in the house. Thank you for reminding me on that, Barry. Please do, guys. If you like what you're listening to today, hit that like button if you could for me. Helps the channel grow. Helps me show up on the algorithm. YouTube likes those little clicky-clack clicks that you do. We're also trying to get ourselves to 15,000 subscribers. We're on the precipice of rounding 14.6, so we're almost within 400 away here. Getting to the promised land, that was the goal this season, so you could help us get there by subbing up right now if you could. I would really appreciate that. I think this is also a really good time to mention the sponsor of this channel. They've been kind enough to sponsor us throughout this season, and that's Underdog Fantasy. You guys have been doing a great job of utilizing this code. You can click it at the top of the description section below. When you click that code, you go to Underdog Fantasy, and when you first sign up, they will match you up to $100 of your first deposit when you use my code NEST, or just click that link. And when you go through, it'll already be in there for you. That's all you got to do. You get $100 in your pocket up to $100 of your first deposit. So $100 on me, and you support the channel. Win, win, win. So please go and do that if you get an opportunity. There are some restrictions that do apply here in the state of Washington. But hey, if you found yourself here in fantasy where you've been kicked out of the playoffs and you got nothing to play for anymore and some of the spice of the season is gone, you can go in there and still get in a weekly fantasy contest going mano and mano against other people. Maybe reclaim a little bit of your pride this year from your fantasy fallout as it might have happened. But thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the show throughout the course of this season. And thank you to you guys for utilizing that code to the utmost. I've gotten some great feedback from them on that. And it's been hard because in the state of Washington, there are some limitations. But if you do go into a casino, you can use the full rights of the app 100%. Joey JP says, good luck to the Seahawks the rest of the way. As for me, I'll be in my nearest bomb shelter. Oh, let's go. Proper, what if you just found out you're Purdy with Locke? No, I'd be open to it. I'm with it, Proper, if that was the case. I don't think that's the case, but I'm open to it being potentially. JL says it'll be fun rooting for the Lions when they play the Vikes. Hopefully they can crush them. Just crush the Vikes. Both games. Take them out of it. Take them out. Brandon Jen says Purdy should not be the MVP. It's an effing outrageous. He looks like the inside track right now. Yeah, Jason, I think Lockett's still doing fine. Real House, I'd be surprised how bad Eagles are against the run. I'm surprised how bad the Eagles are against the run. K9 had more yards in the first half. It had more yards in the first half than the past 5 games. Yeah, they were able to open up some holes inside in there, and the Eagles certainly don't always seem to be technically sound, as they've often pointed on to in-house. This has been some of the kerfuffle you hear from inside the Eagles organization is you've got some players kind of playing for themselves and not playing to their role in the defense and keeping their, for instance, gap integrity. And you probably saw a little bit of overrunning going on tonight, guys trying to do maybe a little bit too much, and that leading to more open holes than there should have been for our Hawks offense, but we took advantage, which was a great part of it. Bear with me 1 second here, folks. Be right back. Check it and see. Me, Niner fan here. I've never rooted this hard for you guys. It's kind of bizarre, but thanks for helping us get the number 1 seed. Bang, bang. Thank you to all the Niner fans coming in tonight. You guys are usually always respectful in your manner and approach. And look, I can't say it makes us happy doing your dirty work. Doesn't make us happy out here breaking knees for you, collecting your rolls. But if it's what it takes for us to get in the playoffs, then whatever. Got to do what we got to do. McCaffrey says, Ski Nation, yeah, I might be more likely to give it to him as an MVP than anybody else. It's hard for those running backs to get that kind of love, though. You got to have like a 2,000-yard season and 35 touchdowns. Proper says, Purdy literally saved our franchise from the Trey Lance draft. If you don't give it to Tyreek, who else? He dog-walked the Eagles, Cowboys, and his entire division. I think it's just at this point, I think it certainly is one that's hard for me to give up, but the production is the production, Proper, right? And, I think he's got a lot that helps him get to where he's going. And sometimes that's hard for some of us to look at the MVP and put it, it's hard as much to give him that nod on that. And for instance, proper, just to be consistent on this, like I'd probably at this point not necessarily go to Tyreek Hill as the number 2 because he's going to be fighting through this injury and he's not going to get up to probably even over 2,000 yards like it looked like he was going to. I think I might even be more likely to drive it to a guy like McCaffrey. In that he feels like the most important part of this great offense that you guys are driving. But it's not to say that Purdy's been not really good as well. And if they gave it to him with the production he's put up, I mean, it is what it is with it. It doesn't change my outlook on who he's a player, but you put that production up, you're going to get that nod a lot of the times, especially as a quarterback in this league. It's just kind of the lay of the land. Proper says, I'm okay with CMC getting it, but it's clearly become a quarterback award. It has. I hate that it has, though, Proper. I mean, you watch the way that you guys have used McCaffrey and leaned on him and the amount of touches he's going to end up this year, and he still has remained dynamic throughout. He's a game changer for you in the backfield. He is what took that offense up to the next level as much as Purdy's ascent. And I would just love to see it more given him, but I could see them giving it to Purdy. I wouldn't sit here and cry a foul if it happened. Lord Boom, there's no way San Francisco can guard Miami. It's not happening. Miami is going to put up 70 on San Francisco if that's what they have to do to get to the Super Bowl. I don't know if Miami's going to make it happen in the playoffs, though. They got to get through a team like the Baltimore Ravens, and you offer real tough matchups to make that happen. Kevin O'Connell says the 49ers are going to disappoint, no doubt, in the walk-off kicking and screaming. It's Super Bowl or bust this year for them, that's for sure. For sure. Since San Francisco lost the Browns and the Ravens. Browns can be a tough matchup week in, week out at times. Or boom, we beat the Eagles, though I don't think the Eagles lose any more games, to be honest. Probably not. I think their schedule is pretty winnable going forward. Well, Kevin says, I'm just waiting on CMC's knees to explode. They've leaned on him. I don't know. He's on, at one point this year, I think he was on pace for like 350 touches. I don't know if they've taken it off that pace, but it was pretty cray-cray. Mr. Kane says, at least the penalties were at league average versus the avenue of flags we normally get. That was a nice change. Team played controlled-ish. That's a good assessment of it, Mr. Kane. And yeah, this is a little bit more of like what you got to see was a true NFL game. It felt like more of a competition between the two teams rather than at times, as it has many times this year, it felt like a competition between two teams plus the 10% of the officials effect. Didn't feel that way this game at all. Well officiated game. I thought it was evenly officiated. And they did play a little bit more with that too, Mr. Kane, to your point, a little bit more of a cleaner game as well with that than what we've seen recently. Red Ace says Purdy should have the first ever fully guaranteed contract, making upwards of 70 to 90 million a year. It is getting salty. Jason C says Peyton Manning was saying at the half that the Seahawks should stop throwing to DK Metcalf, laughing out loud. That's weird. Yeah, he had 2 targets. I don't know what Peyton was watching. Red Ace says, pay that man. It's expensive to live in the Bay. Doesn't he live with a roommate currently? You guys got to get him paid. They get him another cheap year after this, unfortunately. You can't pay him in those first 3 years. So they can navigate these waters for now. Jason C., the many Eagle fans on Instagram complaining about the refs. Oh, okay. I would expect usually when there is a little discrepancy, if we're getting some calls, you'll usually get the alternative. You'll usually get the fans of the opposing team come more into the chat with that, like, hope you guys enjoy your stolen victory. Hope you swallow that down nice, that poisonous win you just had. Brandon Janel, Jake Browning looking good. Yeah, he was fiery on the sideline this last week. Love seeing it. How about Jake Browning? King Bomber, did Woolen get benched? It would appear so. As again, there was a little bit of a question on this of whether or not there's some of this that's impacted by the shoulder injury and making a little bit of his ability to tackle be impinged. Yeah, I think, King Bomber, your question about whether it's injury or play, combination of both, one impacting the other. I think the little bit of the tail of this will be told out as we get into the offseason. If we learn to come to find that Woolen's going to have shoulder surgery and there's something really major he was trying to fight through, we'll know the truth on this one. But it is a little bit hard to read at the moment as to which is what and what is where with that. Certainly the play on the field factored into this, but where the injury comes into play on that, I'm not sure. Alex Farias, I don't see how Jamal Adams starts the rest of the season over Julian Love after that amazing performance. Adam is just too slow now. You got to shut him down at this point, Alex. I don't know if you have to outright deactivate him for every game, but I think at this point in time, he's just not bringing a net positive to the field. And we've got to get away from a little bit of what I would call the sunk cost fallacy here with Jamal, and that when we put the 2 first-round picks into it, well, we've paid him all this money, we've put all this investment into it, so we have to stay committed to it. No, you don't. You go with the best option on the field. And I always say the Seahawks are at their best when they allow competition to be king. That's what helped to get them to the Super Bowl, was every man felt like he had to fight for his job. Nothing was given. And when you have even 1 or 2 positions where that's not the case, it permeates down, I think, through the rest of the team. As opposed to the alternative of what permeates down to the rest of the team, whereas even if stars can be sat, then that means everybody's job on the line, and you better play your butt off, and you better play your butt off, snap in and snap out. And I think in the long term, King Bomber Woolen will be fine. He's been pretty good in coverage this year. The tackling's been bad. The effort's not always been there in getting off the blocks. But I think long term, he can be a player for you. Got to get him healthy. Got to get him to work on the tackling technique and get him to buy in from a commitment standpoint along with it. As you say, I think they can be, Woolen and Witherspoon can be a dominant combination in this league. Gary says the worst thing we could do now is play Jamal because he needs a physical in the spring. If he gets hurt again, we will be on the hook for him. And we need to get rid of him for more depth. Amen. The time has come. Radu says, did you see Cross getting tossed on one of the plays? I believe it was Nolan Smith. Is Cross a confident future starter or maybe to look somewhere else? Could Cross play respectful left guard? No, Cross is your left tackle, Radu. That's where he's going to fit. He's not a mauler out there. He's more of going to be the dancer out there. I don't know if you want to call it finesse left tackle. But I think he can become one of your top 6, 7 left tackles in this sport. Will he ever be considered one of the best? No, but can he be that? Yes, he can. I think he's had an upgrade of a year this year from last year. I think overall you'll see that Radu borne out in his PFF rating, which will be a higher rating this year than it was last year. I'm not saying he's playing at star level. There's still those plays like you say that are those bad plays. And Nolan Smith can be a very physical player. Remember, with him coming off out of even though he's a little undersized, he was looked at as the best edge run defender coming out of last year's draft. But no, I don't think that you'd be able to kick Cross in because of that finesse aspect to the left guard, because you need a mauler in there at the guard position. You need a guy that can drive somebody off the ball, and that's not really as much his game. The Bomber, I thought Damian Lewis locked down Jalen Carter most of the game. I would say he did a great job on him, yeah. Kieran says ESPN called Drew's game-winning touchdown the number 1 play for the weekend. Love it. Heck yeah, dude. Let's go. Great pick by ESPN and a rightful one at that. Aptly put on that one. I love it. News and analysis with Arturo. Go Seahawks. Good to see you in the house. Produce is asked, still a top 10 pick in the draft. Would expect a little better performance in my eyes from Cross. Seems maybe average and maybe even below average going against a top tier rusher. We'll see where he fits out at the end of the season. You know, he's a very, remember too with him, Radu, he's a very young guy coming out, 21-year-old kid coming out. I think he's not even 23 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see where he develops into. But I do like his upside, and I think he's going to get there to it. Kevin O'Connell says, I think Brandon's next shirt idea for merch is, can I get that timeout back? It's a great idea, man. I could custom up this stuff now however I want it. So it's like any ideas in play. Wade Wilson, Seahawks are a fully underrated organization for developing quarterbacks. They have 2 starting quarterbacks in the roster that were given up on, and they turned them into good players that can start. Well said, Wayne. Part of, I think, some of the positive environment you get fostered here is definitely going to be helpful to quarterbacks and getting them in the right headspace to be productive. Wayne says if Locke proves himself the rest of the season and makes playoffs, Seahawks can trade Geno for picks and re-sign Locke and draft a quarterback later on in the draft. I love the inventiveness and your imagination in your approach there, Wayne. I don't know if Geno's going to drive a lot of value on the open market as far as trade, if any value at all, because he's going to carry a pretty heavy base salary and that you have to sign up for as a team if you do move him. But man, you never know, anything's possible at this point. Alexander Pumpkin's out. She's out. She's exhausted, man. That victory took her through took an emotional toll on her, as it did on all of us. Tony says 80% of Purdy plays are Debo and friends getting open for touchdowns or yak. That's the part I see a lot of these highlights. It's not Purdy out there doing amazing things. He's doing what his job is supposed to be, and he's doing it well. And he does a lot of the smaller things at the quarterback position that aren't as noticeable of having a big arm that can just hose it on out or whatnot. A lot of it's kind of subtle stuff. But it's you got guys that get a lot of separation. You get guys that do great with the yak. You got Shanahan who schemes it up brilliantly. Go and look at even a couple of these highlights this last week of these 4 touchdown throws. It's like one of them he has McCaffrey wide open by 30 yards on blown coverage. Another one he throws over there to Deebo Samuel in the flat where Deebo basically can moonwalk in. He's got nowhere near him. You know, is that Purdy being sensational MVP level play, or is that the scheme, the players, you know, and then him making the right pass? Wayne Wilson says, wish people would stop being so mad at Jamal. He's a huge part of the mentality of this defense. And without him, when we lost Nwosu, no run defense till Leonard Williams. I don't know, Wayne. I do feel like there's some players that have, where it's not always fair, that the heat that they get. I will give you that at times. I don't know with Jamal. I think it's certainly a place where you feel bad for him with the injury situations that he's had to deal with. I don't know if that mentality that he's bringing to the table has exactly bled over as much as you say. I don't know if I've seen a lot of proof for that. And when it comes down to it, beyond the mentality he brings to this defense, it's the play that he brings to this defense that's the people's problem, Wayne. And that you're paying him as a top 5 safety, and he's not getting you a lot of productivity for that top 5 level of play. And he's been injured very often outside of this poor level of play right now. And it's not just a one-year thing we're seeing as far as these kind of issues all going together. And so that's going to sour people on players when you're being paid like that and you're struggling on all these weeks. Now, does he have a good reason with the injury situation and probably still not being at close to 100%? Yeah. But you got to make a choice this offseason as it stands, Wayne, in the respect of you have $2 million of functional cap space as it stands right now for the 2024 cap. Somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to go. And the biggest place that you could save the most maximum amount of cap space is by making Jamal Adams a post-June 1st designation. That's going to save you $16 million. As you're sitting on $2 million of cap space right now, you could save $16 million of cap space on the 2024 draft, on 2024 salary cap by moving on from Jamal. And so it's a big part of this discussion at play, and it kind of has to be, especially for the reasons if you want that guy you mentioned, Leonard Williams, you want to bring him back. You want him back in the fold next year. You know? Winston says the refs let him play mostly. DK got a favorable call on that fourth down to keep us in it. He did. You can definitely see on the replay, the corner does hook him around the waist, which is going to draw the call. But with that, to your point of Winston, the officials had kind of let them play throughout the course of the game. But that also maximally impacted that. Kevin O'Connell, Leonard Williams is killing it, man. I love the addition that he's bringing to this defense. Love it. Alexander, Mr. Bayless is a Hawk fan tonight? Probably. I'd say so. Winston says it wouldn't be the internet if everyone didn't go to the other team's chats and declare their win illegitimate. No, it would not. It is part and parcel what you get in this game, that's for sure. For sure. Bomber, Woolen's tackling wasn't terrible last year, so the injury has to be part of it. That's my guess as well, Bomber. I think my suspicions on this is that we're going to get a report after the year that Woolen's going to be due to have shoulder surgery and that it's impeded a little bit of his development as a tackler. He is a bigger guy out there. He's got the size to do it. It's going to take some time to work on it. He is new to the position. I'm not ever going to say he's going to be an amazing tackler, but he can certainly improve on that. And the coverage has been pretty good on the other side of it. Francie Dickinson, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Francie. Appreciate you for doing that. Garth Knight in the house. What's up, Garth? Good to see you as well. He says, I'm happy for the fans. I'm happy for the fans that the Hawks won, but I got to say, a loss with a fire and brimstone stream to follow would have been epic. It's going to be biblical. It's going to be biblical, gosh. It's going to be, it's going to be biblical. It's going to be biblical. You guys know that actor? I speak out of the side of my mouth with an Irish tone. It's going to be biblical. But, yeah, there probably would have been some fire and brimstone if we came out of this loss, 5 straight losses and not being able to stand, not even toe-to-toe, but not even able to get off your knees against some of these tougher foes. But nonetheless, love seeing the win. Love that we still got something to fight for this season, and this thing is not over yet. The fat lady ain't a-singing. And that feels pretty damn good right now. Thank you, Garth. Appreciate the donation. Great to see you in the house tonight, too, man. Steven says, Brandon, I tend to agree. Thank you, Steven. Wayne, I see what you're saying, freeing up cap for other players and players we need to re-sign. I just would hate to see someone like Eagles grab Jamal and be a beast with him. To your point in that, Wayne, let's walk through this on a couple different pathways because it's kind of like, sort of like both things can kind of be true and right. It can be true and right that you have to move on from Jamal because you got to make decisions to address other places and other positions. But it can also then be true that Jamal now, 1 year removed from that major knee surgery, and that instead of it being just 1 year that it took for him to come back and be at his full strength, it instead was going to take 2 years. And therefore, the team that he goes to next is able to then get more of a Jamal Adams that's closer to the player he was maybe a little bit as far as the player he was with the Jets. What I will say to that, Wayne, is, one, if I'm a general manager in John Schneider's shoes at this point, that's a risk that I feel like is just, it's worth taking. Understanding where my cap situation is perilous as it is, understanding the places on this team I need to address from a personnel standpoint. Number two, there's no guarantee he does get back to that old footing. This injury has costed a lot of people, Wayne, their career. They never got back to the same. They were never that same player again. And I don't hope for this on Jamal. The third and very important part of this wheel, Wayne, this part of the wheel that, again, doesn't have anything like the injury situation, is really not reflective on Jamal, is use. You can trade for a player like Jamal, but if you're going to put him in unfortunate positions or in positions that don't allow him to succeed, or you're not going to utilize him best, then you're best to then also just move on from him. What I mean by this, Wayne, is you go to draft him to be the guy he was with the Jets, and you've put him in kind of some other different roles than what he did with the Jets. You're blitzing him at less a rate than you blitzed him with the Jets this season. And that's with him coming in the door in that first year and setting that sack record as a defensive back. So you're not using him right as the other part of this. And again, it's unfortunate that you haven't used him right, but I also don't think that next year they're magically going to start to use him right. That the light bulb will suddenly go on and go, oh, okay, now we got to start blitzing him. blitzing goes against Coach Carroll's pedigree and his philosophy. So you're really not ever going to lean into having him do that. And so you got to kind of at that point, I think, cut bait and call it a day and, move on to greener pastures at that point. And if he goes and finds success elsewhere, then, so be it on that. Lesson kind of properly maybe learned on this one. But it's a tough decision on this one. It's not just the factor of where he is as a player or where he could be next year. It's also that factor of the cap and his big cap hit that he does incur. Brian says, you're still on? Awesome. You know how I roll, Brian. You know how I do. Brandon says, Bobby in coverage is a no-go. Haha, right? Good Lord, he looks, quite slow, to phrase it nicely. Yeah, I think Bobby's not able to move as well in coverage. The coverages we call are also silly, though. The two third downs early in this game, you have a third and, a 9? So the linebackers drop at 13 yards of depth, and later on you got a 3rd and 6 or 5 on that drive. They drop into 9 or 10 yards of depth. You're dropping him at times into these zones and then leaving everything up in front at the sticks. You're kind of making it easy on these offenses when you do that. But I'll give it to you. He's not, definitely a couple steps slower than what you probably had prime Bobby. That's for sure. And the end is definitely coming down the line probably for him. Hawks could do a better job, I think, and he could embrace a little bit more, I think, of being flexed out at times defensively. So you could get the better personnel in the field in those moments to not have to get gashed in that way. But Bobby's been overall a positive of this team on that defensive side of the ball. Let's make sure we get that straight with this, is that he's been an aiding factor on this defense this season. He's not been the failing component of this defense. The scheme's been failing. There's been players that have been failing. Bobby's done his part for what we hoped he could bring this season at his elder statesman age. Big Money Sonny says, dude, thank you so much for being the Eagles. Salute to the Hawks. Best. Hey, our pleasure. Just make us feel great that the Niners are so happy that we did them a favor. I'm going to say it's kind of making this win. Something's in my mouth a little bitter right now all of a sudden. Not happy about this. Not happy about this. Jimmy says, wide open CMC touchdown, Purdy escaped pressure up the middle if you watch the play. He did. He does a good job of escaping on the play there. He also threw the ball there and wasn't able to get the ball on time where McCaffrey falls down. He's so wide open he can fall down, relace his shoes, get back up, and then walk backwards for a touchdown. He's so wide open on that play. But again, that's why I say it's that Purdy's not, he's played good within that, but is he doing something sensational to make that happen, or is it more on the back and driven of the talent around him? It's a bit like the stat that I often go to from last year, which I think is exactly going to bear out this year for you Niner fans. And it's one which I don't think a Niner fan can really argue against this. Last season, you had 3 players in the top 15 in the average separation they generated on their routes run. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. 3 in the top 15, generating all of this space as far as in separation in their route run. You then comboed that with the fact that the San Francisco quarterbacks got the ball out of their hands in the fastest time in the NFL at 2.6 seconds last year. So let's put those two together. Getting the ball out of my hand incredibly quick, so I'm not really going to have any pressure in my face. There's a guy creating a ton of instant separation, makes my job considerably easier. Then let's also factor in that aside from those 3 guys, he's also got Christian McCaffrey back there doing what he does and bringing the separation he does on routes when you throw it to him. And so that's a big part of this for me when I look at Purdy that you can't just go away from. These guys generate the separation. You get the ball out of the hand quickly by the design of the offense. This stuff goes to structure and it goes to the talent around him a little bit. It's not to take it all away from Purdy to say he doesn't have his part in this success, but it is to say that he's being put into a really good position for success with this offense as it's structured. Radu says, how is the Chase Young trade looking compared to Williams performance-wise? I think Chase Young has given them some good play over there. And Williams, I think they've given really good, I think both teams are very happy from their standpoint on what they've gotten back from the player. I think Chase has a couple sacks there, sack and a half. I think he's been pretty active for them. Not a game changer, but he's been solid. And he keeps the rotations good with Gregory. Kieran Leonard is a must sign. Must sign. Got to do it. And I don't know about Draymond either. I would keep Disley because you are going to lose 2 tight ends. It'd be nice to have at least one in-house we can rely upon. But you got to get Leonard Williams back in the house. The big cat has got to return. Brian says, Jamal benched. Love with 2 picks. We know Jamal ain't making. And in the big moments, Jamal's just a hype man. And I'm happy to have a real safety actually play the position. Thanks, Pete. Good call by Pete on the benching. Needed to happen. Smart move there. Lord Boom, nobody knows how to throw the ball to Seahawks players better than Peyton Manning, so maybe we should listen to what he has to say. And King Bomber, in regards to Draymond Jones, I'd agree with you in that he's not living up to his contract. I would offer to you with Will Disley that he's done what you've asked him to do. He's a complete player. If you look at him by his PFF score, I think he might be even still a top 10 tight end in the sport. He does everything really well. He run blocks well. He pass protects well. He catches the ball well. He's good as far as getting open. We don't do a good job of featuring tight ends. If we had more of an in-house tight end that was here, I might be looking more ably to look to move on from him. But I think in the money that you can clear, as I was presenting a couple days on the show a couple of days ago, the money that you could clear off the books with Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Brian Monet, Nick Bellore, Dwayne Eskridge, that's going to clear plenty of space to go out there and make any of the moves that we want to go out there and make at that point without having to really cross necessarily the Disley bridge on that one. Jem Rhodes says, can they make a run to the Super Bowl for real? It's going to be hard. There's not a lot of NFL history of a team at this stage turning it on. Has it happened? Sure, it's happened. Teams can get hot. And what's always most important in NFL season beyond even maybe necessarily your final record is to play your best football at the end of the year. And if this team can find over the course of this next 3 games some kind of footing of consistency on both sides of the ball, they can make that kind of run. But it's going to be damn hard. They're going to have to go on the road, Jim. On the road on all of those games. They're going to have to play a variety of different tough opponents to get that done, including this Niner team that's taken them for 5 straight games over the last 2 years. So, yeah, it's possible, but the odds wouldn't be necessarily in our favor, certainly. Garian says Trey Brown had a pretty strong game today, had the toughest matchup against AJ and held up largely. Yeah, I think he was solid out there for the most part. A couple completions gave up, but he was fighting. He was dogged. King Bomber, if I could just take Draymond's contract and give it to Leonard, I would. Yeah, the team just might on this, King Bomber. You can technically, though, you do take on some dead money with Draymond's contract. You save cumulatively $5 million off the cap. So you could at least take some of that, you know. Brandon Janis says, Sean Connery's a little bit more. Undo your bow, Miss Penny, and I'll come over there and get to know you. He will go a little out the side of his mouth, but I was thinking of it's the Butler guy, right? Or whatever his name is, the guy from 300, you know? Tonight, we dine in hell. I don't do a good one of that one. But he's got that movie where it's going to be biblical. Biblical. He rolls it off his tongue. Red Ace, I agree. Draymond's not exactly being used to his best skill set. They're trying to have him fill a hole there at edge. It's not the best. Garian says, let's say Jamal Adams is still a good player. Best case, he's not the type of safety the Seahawks scheme demands and isn't the type of safety we know how to use. He doesn't have zone skills. Yeah. All well said. All things that I think are a big part of this puzzle with Jamal to consider. You can say that you could scream and shout and say, well, they should use him better and they should do this with him and they should do that. But there is that. Are they willing to do that? No, not really. Well, then you got to kind of move on because you're not going to use him right. Winston says, Adams didn't really do anything wrong. Some commenter can dish it out and rip him for years, but can't take a little joke. Yeah, people are sensitive in this day and age, aren't they, Winston? And one reason I didn't get super over comes to Jamal. I'm not going to freak out on the tweet or whatever that he had that had people up in arms. It's all about on the field for me. And it's, as you say, not anything really about Jamal necessarily doing anything wrong. The man's body's been broken apart here since he's come to Seattle. That's not really reflective on him. He's got his freaking fingers fused together. He's definitely not at 100% this year. And we don't use him right. You know, it's not all his fault, but it does make it something that is at a point that just isn't working. Dino says, good win now, need 3 more. One at a time. Smoke them if you got them. Go. Gary says, the Seahawks scheme coverage demands a safety that has elite coverage skills above everything. We don't put safeties in man. We don't blitz corners and safeties much, so everything Jamal does well, we won't do. You guys got it. You guys are seeing it clear in my opinion as well. King Bomber says, basically everyone on the roster that's not a rookie on a contract or set to be a free agent needs to go except Metcalf, Lockett, DK, Jaron, Love, Dixon, and Myers. I'd add Williams in there too, King Bomber. Leonard Williams would be a guy I'd put in there. But I'm with that. Oh, you got that on there. Okay. I'm with all those guys. Jenna, Bobby, Wags. Yep. I'd bring back Bobby again. I try to get him more into a fitted role. But we got to get a couple of middle linebackers this offseason. Certainly don't like the idea of trusting, let's say, two rookies to start things off next year. Yeah, I'd like to bring Bobby back too, King Bomber. I think he's a net plus in what he's bringing to the team, and you could definitely fit him more into a role next season and try to remove him at times from those coverage situations we find him in. But nonetheless, I've been very happy with what he's brought to the team, and if they brought him back again on another kind of low end deal that you could bring, good bang for the buck, sign me up. Devin Bush wouldn't be bad to bring back either. I think that'd be good. And Uchenna would be huge, Red. He was a big loss this season. Really seemed to kind of slightly break the back of the defense when he went out. Radio says, hey, Brandon, could you see Nwosu back in time for the playoffs, or is he confirmed out if you know something about it? I know nothing insider about it. I do know that there was a little bit of wondering on Uchenna's part if he could not maybe get back by the playoffs if they did get to it. So we've heard no updates from Uchenna Nwosu or that situation up until this point. Don't know where it currently stands. The timeline would be a little bit fast for him to pull back that quick. But look, we're seeing Aaron Rodgers out there with the magical. I mean, if the Jets had been in this playoff hunt, you'd have Rodgers back out there with back from the torn Achilles. So medical science may be speeding up on this stuff. And yeah, he did tear his pec. Kieran says, well, and considering being a rush linebacker means you're pushing people out, he's done for the year. Probably a good chance of it. Daniel says, I feel like we have an equation on third down where we drop to depth the amount of yards they need plus 5 yards, and they wonder why everyone converts their third downs on us. That's what I see as well. They showed it clearly on a couple of the all-22 shots from this game, where you're just seeing the linebackers drop to that depth. The sticks are right here. We're dropping to here. And yeah, you are seeing a considerable amount over the course of this year. We keep expecting for that pass to be thrown into that coverage area where quarterbacks are not really challenging. And that's what I often say that frustrates me so much about this coverage and this defense is that you're covering places that you shouldn't be out, you shouldn't be trying to defend because offenses aren't really trying to challenge you there. Brandon says, yep, love Bobby Wagner, good point. Schematics have not been favorable to my guy. Just uber obvious how slow he is now. Not throwing a significant shade in Bobby's direction, just a little. No, it's all fair, Brandon. It's all very fair. Power Code, how you doing, man? I think people are pretty hyped up tonight. Good to see you. Don, what's up, my dude, brother? This is Brandon All. Merry everything and go Hawks. Merry everything, everybody. Happy holidays to everyone. Gerard Butler, there we go. It's gonna be biblical. It's gonna be biblical. It's gonna be biblical. It's gonna be biblical. I'm just gonna spend the next hour doing that. Oh, surf's up 808. Seahawks had a super awesome game. Let's keep that motivation up and on to the next. Go Hawks. Let's get to the playoffs. Let's do it, Surf. Do it. Alan back in the house. What's up, Alan? King Bomber, I think rolling over this season can finally put this team on its course with a Carroll team or not. That's all we want to see, man. No matter who it is, how it is, what it is, just get to that spot where you're on course. And you can feel when you're on course, you can feel when you're off course. Too much of the season, we felt more to the latter than the former. Brandon Janis, Alexander said, like Al Pacino's rant from The Devil's Advocate. What is God, really? He's an absentee landlord. I'm the last great humanist. Call me Dad. So many names. It's a great Al Pacino performance. And the monologue at the end is just great. Hold on. I can type. Let's see if I can get it up here. Find the monologue. I'll do it. I'll do it right now. God. What is it? God. Well, I'll tell you. Let me give you a little inside information about God. He likes to watch. He's a prankster. Think about it. He gives man instinct. He gives you this extraordinary gift. And then what does he do? I swear, for his own amusement, his own private cosmic gag reel, he sets the rules in opposition. It's the goof of all time. Look, but don't touch. Touch, but don't taste. Taste, but don't swallow. I love that. I love that monologue. It's such a great monologue. Trying to sell Keanu. Come on, son. JTB says the last time the Eagles beat the Hawks, Donovan McNabb was the quarterback. Crazy stat. Crazy stat. And Donovan beat us well on that day. I remember that was a tough day. If I'm not mistaken, JT, I believe that was in Husky Stadium, and that was a brutal affair. Okay, that was not the fun times right there. It was not the good times. Winston, I do like his honesty instead of some pre-written apology. And Adam says, when others go low, I go lower. No, I'm okay with it too. I don't, it's fair game. If the reporter's going to put it out there, you might have somebody say it back. And, that's living life on the online world. We're all potentially subject to it. It's part of why I don't have a girlfriend. No, I'm kidding. Alex, what would you say your Macho Man Randy Savage is better than your Hulk? Would you say your would I say my Randy Macho Man is better than my Hulk? Oh yeah, let me tell you, brother. I do a middling Randy Savage. I do a bad Hulk Hogan. Come on, brother. I can't get the Hulk gets too low with it. Brandon Janis says, Brandon, you're funny, brother. No offense, though. I don't think you do the best Gerard Butler impression. No offense. No offense taken. It is bad. That's why I keep repeating myself, because I think I'm going to land it on the next one. It's going to be biblical. It's going to be biblical. Radu says, Brandon, how bittersweet would it be if somehow we make it to the Super Bowl? Yes, we make it to the big picture, but now we're probably stuck with Pete for a while. Hey, man, it's a Super Bowl run. And I don't know if you get to a Super Bowl just on sort of like magically getting there, Radu, like this team got injured in the first round and you got to the second round and they're missing their quarterback. And then you got the third round and you just kind of like had a couple balls bounce your way. Like you're going to have to earn your way to get there. And if they've earned their way to get there, then that's going to embolden me some faith and that would sell me back to Coach Carroll. It would, I think, because I think you can't just get there by that method. But yeah, I mean, even a playoff run at this point might pull off and do that very same thing. Brandon Janis is way better at Pacino. Haha, damn good, sir. Thank you, Brandon. Gina's one of the ones I'm getting a little bit better. I've been working on Pacino a bit lately. So I think I'm trying to get that down to the same place we got walking, because I love doing Pacino. What do you want here? What do you want here? Team Bomber doesn't make sense how good and bad this defense is. The Eagles offense put up 30 plus points, and the Bills D, which allowed like 15 points to the Cowboys, to which our D allowed like 40. It's the circle of life in the NFL, King Bomber. It just doesn't make sense. NFL's a matchup game. Different teams, different parts, different strengths. But we've also been highly inconsistent, which is, to your point, the head of this bit. That's kind of the big elephant in the room. Ready? So Chenna was a big big for us because he constantly set the edge and allowed more freedom for Boye Mafe. Plus, we didn't get to see him with the big cat. I love Uchenna and what he brings, and you felt his loss this year, which is just I think, an example of that. To your point, he is a guy that's part of the future with this team. It sucks that he went down. He should be able to recover from this injury fully, and luckily it's not a lower leg problem. But he gives you max effort. He is a vet's vet. He knows this game. He's played a lot of football, but he's not super old. I like Uchenna and what he brings to the table, and we can't get him back fast enough. Alexander says that Brandon, great one, absentee landlord. I love my Al Pacino, man. I'll do the whole speech, guys. I'll do the whole speech. You know what I mean? I'm here on the ground with my nose in it since the whole thing began. I've nurtured every sensation man has been inspired to have. I cared about what he wanted. I never judged him. Why? Because I never rejected him, in spite of all of his imperfections. I'm a fan of man. Such a great written dialogue. Daniel says, man, I went to Dave & Buster's for Monday Night Football with some friends. They got bottomless chicken wings for $24 and solid quality. They also throw in a free $5 game of tokens. Been in food coma hours later. Oh my God, you would eat yourself in a food coma like that, wouldn't you? Bottomless chicken wings? Holy crap. Especially you get these long primetime games that go nearly 4 hours. You're gnawing on chicken the whole time. King Bomber says, I'm usually with you, Brando, especially on the Metcalf situation. But if you go low, then I'll go lower is ridiculous. If you're attacking the reporter, fine. Do what you want. He attacked you. You attack him. I'm always a consistent guy in this, King Bomber. And I will certainly acknowledge that this may be a personal failing in me, but as you know with me, I can't fade the funk on it. It takes a lot for me. I look around at society today, and I think that there's a lot of, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing here, but I see a lot of sensitivity, a lot of people getting up in arms over things both big and small. And I find myself, when I look at things more often than not, where I really get to a spot where I go, I'm offended. I am personally affronted by that. It's maybe just the way that I'm personally wired. And if it's my failing, I'll own it on that. I'm not saying it's something where everybody needs to come to my table on this one and see things as I look at it. But the thing that you will find with me, King Bomber, is I tend to be pretty consistent on this stuff. And it's not a great look, but it's also something that's not really going to impact much of the way I look at Jamal and whether I consider him to be with the team or not be with the team. It doesn't really register for me as a blip on my radar at that point. Again, is it how I would have responded? No. Is it out of pocket? Sure. But it just doesn't, I don't get too emotionally wound up on that stuff. Like I see some people do online with it when I see some of the reaction to it, where people become like aghast by it. And I just kind of feel myself shrugging. Now, maybe I'm just a jaded ass old man who, can't be rattled out of my, what is the word I'm looking for? Whatever it is, not a good word. Would be a good word of my reference to myself on this one, but I just can't. I just end up going, it raises an eyebrow and I just kind of shrug and go, yeah, whatever, Metcalf going after Warner last week was 100% justified, but I can't with Adams, especially with the play you've been putting out on the field too. I get that. Totally understandable. Kieran says it's like players attacking people on the sideline for talking shit. Uncalled for. Absolutely uncalled for. I'm not saying I don't approve of it. I ain't saying like it's good that Jamal says I'll go low. It's not representative good on his character thing. It just doesn't move my needle much is all I'm saying. Daniel says they've got $5 Long Island iced teas too. Now that's a bit different. Cause you can go with that well liquor on the Long Island and you can literally feel yourself burning your liver out when you drink those drinks. They will get you messed up. That's everything. Holy Lord, those are strong drinks. That was my go-to when I was 21. When I was first drinking, when you're young like that, you're like, let's get drunk. Like bring on the Long Islands. But that they're bringing out the well liquor that they had old granny fermenting in the back in potatoes when you ain't getting anything close to the top shelf on that at $5. David Buster's is trying to put people out, man. Oh, Lord. Robert Jimenez, Macho Man reaction to the Seahawks win. I'll try. I've got to be a little quiet because I can't do Macho Man loud, Robert. So my neighbors downstairs at 12:30 going, oh, you're doing Macho Man at 12:30, huh? Thank you for that. Appreciate it. I'll tell you, brother, we got a win today. Oh, it was a good win. We came good with the win. We got the DK Metcalf at the end, and we got the victory. Gonna come back next week against the Tennessee Titans. And oh yeah, we're gonna take the Tennessee Titans down underneath, and we're gonna scrape them and pull them underneath the ground. And we're gonna take them down. Jack Wilson, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. The mom of the reporter gets in your face and talks crap, you fine. Do as you will, but I don't really sit right with it, especially when the reporter literally just said, yikes, to a terrible play. I get it, man. I get it, King. I understand the standpoint of people that do get up in arms. It's for me in particular, it's a hard one to get up into. I can't force it, you know. You feel it or you don't on that type of stuff. It's not a good look. I don't say that. I don't think it's a positive for Jamal. I don't think it's an indication of what a badass he is going after a man's wife. But, you know. Brian, can I do a Burgess Meredith? Maybe. I could maybe at some point. The voice is definitely starting to top out at this point. I could feel it. I do not do a good Joe Pesci, Lord Boom. I tried to do it. You motherfucker. That's all I can. That's all I can do, Joe Pesci. You motherfucker. You know, I can do like that. But I've tried Joe Pesci. I can't quite land him. There's a couple that are just very evasive for me. Pesci's been one that's a hard one. Jack Nicholson is one I've been trying to get him right. He's a hard one to land as well. But sometimes the Seahawks victory's best on the back of a beautiful woman. Know what I mean? But I'd like to get a Jack Nicholson in at some point. And I've tried the Pesci. I'm working on the Pesci too, but Pesci's tough. What are you saying? Reek 206, did it seem like there was a lot of false starts by the Eagles that weren't called? There was a couple of them. I don't know if it was egregious. I didn't have like a night of watching Lane Johnson do his false start kick thing all night. That didn't stand out to me necessarily. But there was maybe a couple plays in there that I thought were interesting on that. Also, it was the strange call on Fant on the false start early on, where Fant's just turning back to hear the play call, and he's checking with the lineman, and they call that a false start. But it was a fine officiated game. Jack says, I think we're seeing some results of the continuity on that O-line. Very well could be, Jack. Especially with Lucas maybe getting back now into more of his feet underneath him, you know, knocking off the rust. Cross as well with that. Health holding up maybe just a little bit better. Fallen Delta, we really have a young talent. We should focus on the young players now. I think they're going to still try to go for the wins, but definitely got a great core young group here. Space is all you can eat wings. Sign me up. I know, man. I wouldn't stop. I'd be in the food coma too by the end of it, especially with the Long Island iced teas in combination. You're going to be on the toilet the next day for a good amount of time, but worth it. Fallen Delta, Brandon, do you think Drew Lock is fixable and capable of being QB1? I think he's capable of being a QB1 in this league in the right circumstances. I don't think he's the answer for us as QB1 in the future. I don't mind rolling with him over the next couple of games, but I don't think our QB1 in the future really necessarily resides on this roster as it stands right now, though Drew or Gino. But he was fine in this game. I don't want to overstate of him being, you know, he wasn't, to me, for instance, Gino's performance against the Cowboys on the road a couple weeks ago was much more impressive than what Drew Lock did in this game. I love the final drive and all that, but that would be my stance on that a little bit. King says, yeah, I'm with the idea that it's gotten softer. I personally don't care for it much either, but attacking their wives has been much for me. I get it. And like I say, I'm not deriding anybody that feels that way with it. I don't personally get there with it. But I'm also this way about a lot of stuff. I often get presented with stuff people will ask me about of, doesn't this get you just, you know, so mad about what this guy did with it? And it's most of the time on those kind of things that are under this horse of this kind of color, it just doesn't tend to move me much where I go, yeah, it's not great, but it's not that big of a deal either. It's a tweet, you know, guy said something online, you know what I mean? King Bomber says, anyway, he's probably not going to be on the team next year anyway. There you go. Exactly. Red A says things get blown up when you're losing, referring to Adam's situation. Seems more of a lack of awareness, kind of like when he's in zone. You brought that one back around, Red A. Well done. Well done. Daniel says, I have a feeling that play caller on defense changes throughout the game, and the drives that our defense is looking like trash, 20 yards off the ball, soft zone coverage is when Pete is taken over. Possible. Possible. Robert says, tequila was my drink of choice in my 20s, but I can't stand the smell of it. That's what happens to you when you go too hard on it in your 20s. I get a little bit of like that with, I can sometimes have that with whiskey. I didn't overdo tequila. You know, it's one of those ones you take out every once in a while. You got to be careful with tequilas. They say that's the LSD of alcohol. But it'll take you on some wild rides if you're not careful. I still love me, though, a margarita. All day long with the margaritas. I'll even do the salt around the rim. You can laugh at me. You can laugh at me. I'm over here getting the nice buzz while you laugh, okay? Nice salt around your rim, bucko. Daniel says, notice that they drove on us with ease on the first two Eagles drives of each half. I could see Pete saying, I'm going to call the defense to start us out. It's possible, man. Burna2883 says, run the table. Let's do this. Why not? Why not us? Robert Jimenez says, one of my favorite Jack Nicholson lines was in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Oh, I love that. That's another one of the great monologues, one of the great scenes, of course, in cinema history. Cruz doing his best to match Nicholson's energy, but Nicholson absolutely putting on a master class session in acting at that point, you know. Who's going to do it? You. Weizenbaum. Son, we live in a world, and those worlds got to be men with guns. Who's going to do it? You. See, I can't get a Jack. Even this late hour, my voice is starting to burn, so. But great speech. And someday I'll get Jack down. He's tough, but I'll get him. Jack says, the wife wants my attention, but all I got to say is, heck yeah, celebration tonight. I'll see you later. I see you later, bro. Hope you enjoyed the victory. Loving the victory tonight, Jack. Savoring the flavor of it. It's been 4 weeks since we've had one of these, so you better I'm going to enjoy this. And it feels good. Feels good. It was a fun game, too. Great end. Love seeing it, man. Tell your wife, thank you for letting you borrow for a little while. We'll let you back. We'll be back tomorrow on a post-game discussion with Brendan on this game. Jimmy, do you think it's confidence that both Jody Allen's teams are struggling? Jimmy says, do you think it's coincidence that both of Jody Allen's teams are struggling at this moment in time? Hard to say, Jimmy. Hard to say. You know, it is tough there with that. I think when I look at the Portland Trail Blazers and I look at the move that they got for Damian Lillard, for instance, that seems to be a pretty good move. That seems to be a sign of smartly waiting until the right time to move Lillard, as opposed to when he was even asking for potentially a trade like last year. You kind of waited for the right time on that one. Like kind of we waited for the right time on the Russell Wilson deal. Instead of trying to move him too early, too fast, we chose the right moment in time to do it. It could be emblematic of the fact that it's Jody's and her owning the team and not necessarily truly signing up to own it long term, and that you're missing a bit of guidance there. Could be a part of it. I'm told by a lot of people, Jimmy, in the background that even know potentially Jody personally, that she's invested in this team, that she cares, that the narrative out there that she's sort of hands off or just looking to the sale is not accurate. I'll take them at their word on that. And if that's the case, then that's not necessarily the part of it. It is just a coincidence. But I will give you this. It's hard to say for sure. Alexander Matthews says, Slim Jim Brandon. Slim Jim. Radu, if you don't mind me asking, what was your job before YouTube? My guess, maybe trades. No. My history goes back to technical. So I've done just about everything that you can imagine in the technical world. I had a good 4 or 5 year period there where I was contracting with Microsoft for a while. My title, I guess, at Microsoft would have been software test engineer level 4, which, you know, is a fancy title, but it's not all that all consuming of a job. But I've done IT management for small businesses. I've done online SEO marketing work and website work for companies. So anything under the book from an IT standpoint that you could imagine, I've done it. I've still got a couple of little side gigs that are real small gigs I still do as I've transitioned to the YouTube realm of things. So still do just a little bit of that. But IT background for me on that, Radu. That's where I come from. Which thankfully came in handy because I finally solved this stupid microphone problem I've been having for the last week and a half. I went into a dark 7th level of hell in Dante's Inferno to figure out the fix on this one. I was in Regedits last night, running scripts. It was dark. It was dark. Jack, call me heartless, but I don't care what players say unless it affects play time. As long as you're good, who cares? That's where I'm kind of at too, Jack. Maybe it's a personal failing within us, but if you're kind of wired that way, you're wired that way. And it takes a lot for me to really get me to get too up in arms or aghast at much of anything. Yep, and water hose water was excellent back then. Nothing like taking a good drink from the hose back in the day. Definitely can't do that now. Daniel says, I get what you guys are saying about Adams, but did you see the reporter's wife? Yikes. Before you all get your panties in a bunch is a joke. Yeah, I actually thought too, it's even kind of the stupid part of the joke is that she's actually she's pretty nice looking actually. So, I don't know. Didn't really work much as a joke from Jamal's standpoint either. Didn't even land in that way, You make that joke and make it funny at least. But I'm like, well, she's pretty kind of attractive girl. What are we doing? What are you talking about here? Alex says, did they stop using Frank Clark or what the heck happened to him? Frank Clark was out there in this game, but they have minimized his snaps. He has been a deactivated player in Seattle here at times this year. So in the last couple of weeks as well, I think they're trying to dial back his snaps and understanding he's not bringing a lot to the play when you're putting him out on the field. I think he did play in this game, Brandon. I think I saw him on the field on a couple of snaps. DVD Forever, oh wow, look at what a run game does for you and not giving up on it after a loss. Let's go. Just join. How you doing, DVD? It's good to see you, man. And certainly today, the running game got going today. I was asked a great question on if the Hawks were able to make a playoff run on what it would take. What would be the two offensive players that would have to play outstanding football in order to get yourself to the playoffs? And I felt like it was going to be the, Walker, that is the running back, and whoever the quarterback was going to be in starting. And that those were going to be what was really going to decide whether or not you could get there from the offensive side of the ball perspective of things. And I think Walker showed you that today in his dynamic level of impact that he brought to the football field. But to your point as well, DVD, to the commitment that they stayed with it, especially DVD as you got into the third quarter and you stayed on it. You didn't turn away for no particular reason away from what was working. Instead, you stayed on it until you forced the Eagles to stop you with it. And that's been a great change of pace in this game from what we've seen in some of these other games where it's been hard sledding when it comes to the running game. And then when you've had some good rushing attempts, you will just kind of inexplicably go away from it. In space, yeah, Frank Clark's definitely not long for the Hawk world. Daniel Bailey says, Williams didn't get any sacks this game, but looked very disruptive. I really hope we retain him. Me too, Daniel. He's been outstanding for us, in my opinion. He's been everything we thought we were going to get. We weren't getting a top 5 defensive tackle in this sport, but you're getting a damn fine player and much better than anything else that you have on that defensive line, even with how well Jaron Reed's played for you this year. And I hope he becomes the high priority free agent. I imagine he will be, and it will be money well spent. He's a good player. Radu says, can't get mad at the conservative run game. I feel like we needed that to stay at a two-sided offense. I don't mind it either, Radu, especially when you're having success with it. Certainly like the commitment when you've got the success there that bears it out for you to do it. And to your point, then that at least keeps those pass rushers and maybe a little bit more having to play it straight up. They can't just run like a bat out of hell off the snap every time trying to get to the QB. Fallen Delta says, I've been a fan of the channel for a while, Brandon. Today, I feel more alive after the W. I decided to become a patron. Let's go. Hey, Fallen Delta, thank you for doing that, man. I really, really, really appreciate that. The support I get on this channel is absolutely, I think, second to none, bang for buck. For the amount of subs I get, the amount of support I get, and the love I get is absolutely insane. I mean, in a great way. And I could never have asked for more from my local community in that way. And that now includes yourself on that. So thank you for your longtime support of the channel, being a sub of the channel, and now becoming a patron of the channel. Keep an eye on that Patreon. I'm going to be continually expanding these benefits as we've really been able to build that further and more. So keep an eye out tomorrow. I'll be getting the PFF scores out to you guys on the patron side of it. And on Thursday, we'll be doing the members only, patrons only stream as well. Thursday night football. And we will continue to be getting more and more shows as we go into this off season over on the membership side of it. So if you want to become a member, now is a really great time to do so as well, folks. We are reopening back up the Discord server. It's been opened up until this point. I just haven't thrown out any invites into the server. You can find that down in the description link section of this video below, where if you want to look to get added onto the Discord server, that's a clean, easy way to be had on in order to get that done. But thank you, man. Appreciate you following Delta for that. You're helping me out and be able to continue to do this channel, do it throughout the off season, do it full time at that. Not have to go back to that stinking IT stuff. Don't have to crawl around in wires, lace cords through things. No more of that. BB says, do we put Jamal Adams on the IR for the rest of the year? I think that there's maybe not there's really not an upside to putting him on the IR for the rest of the year, absent you're trying to get him to a clean medical evaluation this offseason so that you can release him. You can get his physical, he gets a clean bill of health, and you can move on, and there's not any problems financially in doing that. But as well, it's also nice to have this guy as an insurance policy. What if you have an injury to Julian Love? You know, what if Kobe Bryant goes down then? Having the ability to call back on this guy, there's not really the gain to you don't have to make the call of IR. You can just inactivate him while still then having the ability to call upon him if you need to do so. So I don't think they'll IR him. I don't think I'll IR him. Brandon says, crazy. This win has catapulted the sentiment of so many fans in a positive direction. Definitely an awesome win. I think people are definitely looking at this point, Brandon, for something to feel good about with this team. It's been real darkness in a lot of this season, and certainly in this 4-game stretch, it's been extra dark. It's been black hole dark. But it's great to see people feeling good about this win and enjoying it. And let's see if the team, as they're still fighting, as they're still in it, you never know where these years can end up and how they go, and it's a long season for that reason. Got to keep tuned in that way. Daniel says Walker was a dog out there. As always, he earns the nickname K9. He kept us in the game to keep our offense clicking and making something out of nothing more than a handful of times. As I always say with this, Daniel, just in tandem with your comment on this, look out for Charbonnet and Walker if you actually get consistent run blocking up in front with these guys. We've seen this year what they've been able to do from a dynamic aspect when you've not been able to provide those holes for them. What happens when those holes start to be there on the ready? What happens instead of Walker being under duress and having penetration in the backfield where he's getting bounced 3 yards in the backfield by the defender who's coming clean? Instead, he's looking at a Cadillac-sized hole that he gets to run through full speed, get up to full speed, and cook that safety who's trying to get down and run that alleyway and take him off his feet. I hope we're going to get to see it. You'll see the talent then fully maximized at that point. You'll see what dynamic talents both Walker and Charbonnet truly are at that point. But first and foremost, it's going to take a commitment to building up that proper offensive line. Mr. Kane, good night. Thank you for reminding me as well. Please do hit the like button on that. You sleep well, and thank you for all your great work out there in the stadium tonight. Robert says, Diggs plays a good game, but I think Julian Love deserves to start from this point forward. Also, I hope Witherspoon can play for the stretch run. Well, good news is we should be getting Witherspoon back. The hip pointer shouldn't be holding him out for too long, which is going to be very helpful for us. And yeah, Julian Love's got to start over at least Jamal at this point, Robert. Well said. Red Aces, Blitz Boys, Bobby Bichet. Bobby Bichet. Bobby Bichet. Space says, did you see those flat screens that look like a picture? I almost went that route. They're getting cooler and cooler, man. One of these days, I'm going to spring for one too. I'm definitely I don't technically have a TV right now, so I probably should get one. Maybe those will be a good one to go get. Kieran says, you don't have to give up on a playoff runs. If you did, you never gotten the Beastquake, arguably one of the best moments in Seattle sports and NFL history. You okay to win the games. I'm good with it too, Kieran. Great point on that. And that was a win you could say that helped to start to get the buy-in process happening with Coach Carroll. A win like that, not only being a great hallmark moment of this team and certainly a signature of beast mode, but also one of those moments that you look at it and you go and you say, that also helped to get you to those Super Bowl wins. No, Kitty, don't go to all the courts. Okay, please, thank you. Thank you. Spaces, I think they're Samsung. I'll check them out, man. I might be having to still get a computer here, so that might be my first purchase, but I've been thinking about getting a TV. My little laptop screen I watch the game on is kind of small. Brandon says, absolutely. Been waiting for that two-headed Walker Charbonnet monster with a solid O-line. Both backs can F and get it. Man, I just hope Walker can stay healthy. Me too. And I hope they can get him that offensive line. King says, great screens, even if 4 and 5 yards. It was keeping the linebackers off the line of scrimmage and opening the run game. It was. It takes that commitment to it, but I saw the same thing, King Bomber. Leaning into it just enough to keep them honest. And that's all you got to do it. Much like with the blitz game. It ain't about having to dial it up 100% of the time. It's about keeping the opposition honest in their approach, not letting them kind of cheat one way or the other. Bomber Lucas did play, and I think he did finish the game. Space, I have an extra TV if you want one, Brandon. Oh, I'm all good right now. I'll definitely get one. I appreciate the offer, but I just got to not be lazy and go out there and get one. There's plenty out there at good prices. I've just been kind of waiting for whatever reason. Like Rand says, there's 4K TVs out there. They're cheap now, especially after Christmas. All the prices always tend to go down. That Black Friday stuff's not right. It's actually after Christmas. You got to go. That's when those prices go down. Space, I'll give you the wall hanger too. You're very kind for offering on that, man. I couldn't do that to you. I couldn't take off your TV off your hands on that one. The other problem is I got to figure out a place to put it. I still got my green screen up behind me that I haven't utilized at all, so I can't put it on that wall. I'd have to put it like over here. Find some way to make it happen. You guys would laugh your ass off if you saw my living room, by the way. You would laugh your ass off. Definitely only a bachelor could get away with this. That's all I'll say about it. Spaces, I have 4. Oh, wow. You're rolling on that. I might hit you up eventually on that Space. We'll see if I can find one. I got to go check out this flat thing, one thing you say, because that sounds more up my alley, because then I can just set that up somewhere and kind of it doesn't take as much space up, you know. Kieran says the Beastquake run and play can still get me hyped as F a decade later. It's the best all-time run in NFL history. There's a lot of great runs in history of the NFL. That one beats anybody else. There's no run where you're going to have every component of a running back being asked to do something like he was on that play. And I'll go to my grave unless I see some other run that stands out better or extra than that, than saying that was the best I've ever seen. He almost broke every defender's tackle on the play. Every defender had a shot at him, it felt like, just about on that play. And he got it through it all. And it took him being creative in his decision-making. It took him being beastly. It took him being quick at times. It took him being elusive. It all went together on that play. DVD Forever B, which quarterback will we take if he's there at pick 18? I wanted Jaden Daniels, but what about you? If I'm pressed to pick with a quarterback with the first pick in the first round, DVD, as you're asking, and removing the second, third round out of consideration, just merely operating from a standpoint of saying, okay, who's the first round quarterback you would take where you're picking? We obviously got to remove Drake May and Caleb, so it really does come down to Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, maybe a Spencer Rattler if he starts getting hyped up a little bit in this post-draft process. I would go with your guy, Jaden Daniels. I like Michael Penix's upside. I like what he could potentially get done instantaneously for you at the position. But you don't have the right offensive line in place to get that out of Penix. Jaden can cover up some problems on your offensive line with his mobility and his escapability. And I like how he has developed. So I would probably go to him above Michael at that point. Brandon says Basequake will always be a triumphant moment in Seattle's history. Boy, will it ever. Boy, will it ever. Dude, I'm serious. It's pretty easy. I'll check it out, Space. I will for sure. I'll hit you up on the next stream. If I decide you send me one, I'll try to twist your arm and send me one. Alexander says, yeah, a lot of nails and a few hammers. Brian, Barry Sanders has the next best run versus Chicago, and then Bo Jackson's run versus 87-88. I also like the Walter Payton versus Kansas City, though that's one that's also got a lot of, that's got a lot of those factors in place too, with the quickness and the power, and I'm a big fan of that one as well. The kid with the Arizona a couple years ago, that big back they had a hell of a run at one point too. Brian Wilson Penix is a pure pocket guy, not our style of quarterback yet. That's where I stand at as well. Not the guy we would use in this offense yet, for the way we got the offensive set. He's got to go to the right conditions for as far as the scheme that he's utilizing and the offensive line in place to protect him. If he gets that, Penix can light it up right from day one in your offense in the NFL. But if you put up less than good parts around him on that other side of it, then there's a good chance you get him broken, and in addition to that, he fails. Red A Solo Gunner 20s, put the team on my back. Videos legendary, generation defining. I'll check that out. No twisting retired or twist ties. Laughing out loud. I always get it when I got to hang something, man. I'm not one of those guys that's my wheelhouse. I got to hang something or I got to fix something. I do. That is definitely, confidence is going to be shaken. Though OLED is nice, this flag, I'll check it out. Maybe that's going to be my purchase on it. Robert says, as much as I despise Oregon, I would pick Bo Nix. I like Bo Nix. I don't have any problem if he ends up being the selection. I do think he's more probably a second round guy, but he could creep into first round discussion, much like you saw with Pickett when he started out the process of being looked at as a second round guy, but ended up in the first round. Has so many starts at the college level, played his best ball at the end, seemed to kind of turn it up a notch. That might bring somebody into that point of bringing him up in the first round. But I'd be hesitant with Nix. I think he is more of a second round guy. I do like him though, Robert. Brandon says, Brandon, you're awesome as always. Thanks for the platform, Russ 12s. Guess I'll call it a night. Here on the East Coast, it's almost 4 a.m. 4 a.m. Thanks, man, again. Go Hawks, baby. Hey, go Hawks, Brandon. And thank you, man, for the great discussion as always, as well from your side of things. Appreciate you. Brian Wilson, Eric Dickerson versus the St. Louis Cardinals. I'll have to go back and watch that. So many of Dickerson's run Brian or him out in the open field, running 60 yards straight up the field where he's just hit that sixth gear that he had and he was gone. Alexander says, Brandon, you don't own a TV? I watch all my stuff on a computer monitor. I know, isn't it sad? But part of it's just the way my living room has been set up, because the living room is completely dominated by this setup. This desk is in the center of my living room right now. You barely can even get my couch into the room. It is the ultimate bachelor look. The ultimate bachelor look. Brian says Bo Nix is probably the pro coach's choice. Probably. He's going to have a lot of coaches that's why I think he could creep into that first round discussion is I could see a coach falling in love with Bo Nix. The mobility, the ability to play on script. I've kind of thought a little bit of even like a Niners looking for a good backup option to Purdy, having, Bo Nix waiting in the wings wouldn't be the worst of ideas for them. Daniel, how would you grade our defense overall in this game on your first impression? I give him a B. I don't think that they played as good as the final score indicated, if that makes sense. I mean, you hold a team to 17 points, you say, man, that was kind of maybe close to a pretty elite defensive effort in what you're bringing. I didn't feel like that to me on the other side of it. You didn't generate a lot of pressure. The tackling was a little bit better. You did good and stop. You did better than you've done recently stopping the run game, but they still ran for 180 yards. It's a step in the right direction defensively than what we've seen in recent weeks. I will say that. But it would be probably just a B in my outlook. DVD, I'm fine with Nix too. Great throw on the run. Yeah, he can throw on the run. He can play on script. He's going to go out there, DVD, and run a 4.5. He's going to run a Russell Wilson-like speeded time, but he's going to do it on a 6'2" frame and good weight on him as well. So he's a fun player. The only questions with him are a little bit of, can he do the off-script stuff? Can he improvise? Does it have to all be A, B, C, D, E for him, Mariah Benavides, no hate, but the Seahawks are not making the playoffs. No hate taken on that, Mariah. And, we've got to earn our way into there. We just got back to 500 tonight. We have only a couple of real quality wins on the season. So questioning and wondering about whether this team can get it done here going through this year is valid, Maria. Spaces, it was between the OLED or the Sony. Sony's always a good choice. Doodle Bob, I'd like to draft some O-line help and hopefully JJ McCarthy if he falls to the third. I'd be okay with JJ in the third. I got him with a 4th round grade, but if you took him in the 3rd round, that'd be okay. I got to get warmed up, Doodle Bob, on JJ McCarthy. He's one guy that does get mentioned a decent amount that I haven't, in watching the tape, quite been able to get there yet with him. I can see some of the good parts in his game, but I haven't been able to get fully signed up for the McCarthy experience. Lord Boom, Minnesota Vikings need a quarterback. Looks like they like the same guy as us, Daniels. See that? Panasonic made some great flat screens. Check those out. Never know. All right, let's get the last couple of questions on in here tonight as we kind of start to put a button on this. And one more thanks again to the sponsor of the show, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is going to be sponsoring the show throughout the rest of the season and into this off season. They've been kind enough to do so here on the Hawks Nest this year. You guys have done a great job of utilizing it. Click that link at the top of the description section below. They'll match up to 100% of your first deposit up to $100. So $100 on me, and you help the Hawks Nest out. Maybe you're out of that fantasy this year. Maybe you found yourself at this point looking on the outside in. You're out of the playoffs. Well, you can still get in the weekly fantasy contest, pick a fresh team still every week as the last couple of weeks of the season. Spice up your NFL Sundays a little bit more. They're giving away $200,000 a week through the rest of the season. You can use my code right now and get matched up to $100 of your first deposit. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the show. A couple of other notes that are very important here that I want to let you know of as we kind of wrap this up here today. I will be on my Twitch channel more and more. You're going to find me this offseason building that up a little bit more. I'm going to be gaming. We're going to be doing some of the stuff that we broadcast openly. We broadcast over there on Twitch. But please do, as you can click down the description section below. It's the Seahawks Nest on Twitch. You can get subbed up over there and be part of what I'm going to continue to expand and grow on over there. As well as the Discord channel is now back opened up. So if you click down the Discord, there's an invite link down there here in the description section below. You can get right over there to the Discord channel. We'll be chopping it up a little bit more over there. I'm going to try to spend some time as I can over there, but it's mainly to kind of get the community fostered over there and have that as another outlet and place that we can kind of go to and utilize has often been requested of me. So wherever expanding here, wherever getting up more and more, I will be posting again into a description link section of the Bleacher Report show we did as this game wrapped up tonight. If you're looking for a quick little half-hour breakdown, as I know these long-winded 3.5-hour, 4-hour sessions can sometimes be a bit much for some. Doodle Bob, who would you take with our first-round pick? Doodle Bob, I'm certainly driven more beyond anything to be a value-based guy in my assessment of the draft, being that wherever my pick comes up in the first round, second round, third round, I want to take the best value on the board. Who's the highest guy I have on my board? And in taking that approach, Doodle Bob, that takes me a little bit away from predetermining I'm going for this position or I'm going for that guy. However, in the name of answering your question with honesty, I would like to maybe look at one of these offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen that could be there at that point. Maybe you trade back in the first round to go get one of them. But three of the guys that have really caught my fancy, Cooper Bebe, Graham Barton, Tony Fontanu of the UW. All three of these guys can play some tackle, but they look to be having a pro career where they'll be lined in at left guard. And that seems to be where you're going to be able to find some success with those guys in their future. And that's a big need for us, I think, right now. Maria, is Gino playing next week? Hard to say on that. It was a game time decision this week, and those groin injuries can tend to be ones that take a little bit of time, Maria, to try to figure out. Some are more harsher than others. The set timeline is always not the same for each individual player on that. DVD says Howell has been great with all the sacks included. Yeah, I think Sam Howell's done a good job. Very good job. Robert, if the Seahawks missed the playoffs because of being swept by the Rams, that would be a total bummer. Yes, it would hurt. It hurt. Alex Smith, Panasonic used to make good TVs in general. One of the top TV brands back then, and good microwaves. Yeah, maybe not in the same place they once were with it. Hannah, boy, do you think Jalen Hurts might have hit his ceiling and that the quarterback you see is the final product? Kind of. I think the quarterbacks are always going to get better with time. The more, especially if they're allowed to start year in and year out. You know, you take a 28, 29-year-old Jalen Hurts, he's going to have some more upside to his game from a throwing standpoint and processing standpoint on the field versus this Hurts right now that's still growing in that part of his game. I didn't like the fact that they gave him the contract extension. I thought that was a year early from Philadelphia's standpoint, and I think that they were doing that and making the same mistake in a lot of ways of what they did with Carson Wentz. It's not that Hurts isn't a good player. He is a good player, but he's also the culmination of the supporting cast he has around him. Devontae Smith, Brown, a top-notch offensive line from stem to stern, dynamic playmakers in the backfield throughout his time there. That is what's helped him to really excel there. He's done his part in addition to that, but he's got limitations as a thrower of the football. And when you start paying those guys $50, $55, $60 million, You start to have to look at all of their deficiencies in addition to the benefits they bring to the field as well. So I think that Hurts has in a lot of ways topped out. I don't think that that makes him a bad player or a guy that can't take you to the Super Bowl, but it does mean that it's going to be relying on supporting parts, and he's not going to be one of these supermen quarterback that go out and, throw for 4,800 yards in a season and can put the team on their back. He's not going to be that kind of player. Brian says Pete equals playoffs. It's going to be hard-pressed to find another old-school kind of coach with the moxie and cachet Pete has that will ensure continued success. It is. I don't think it's impossible, and it's going to be a tough process, to your point, but I think it's certainly is a pathway I'd be willing potentially to go, but we'll see how the season plays out, Maria says, I'm a Rams fan. I'm just here because I'm bored. I'm sorry to hear that, Maria. And the Vikings do have a tough schedule. It does look like maybe both the Rams and the Hawks end up with it, end up winning the game. You never know. Val Ramos says, great take on Hurts. Thank you, Val. Always try to find a little bit of the nuance on it, where you're not trying to completely shade the guy, but just put the player in the right perspective of who they really are and what they are. Hurts is a real self-made player in so many respects, but it will always be a place that with a quarterback, you're always going to get me a little bit hesitant with them when I can see there's some deficiency in the arm talent aspect. There are some NFL throws that they struggle with. There's a lot you got to do from an NFL standpoint. It's not just having the great arm, but when that is limiting to you, that's going to then limit a playbook a little bit, and will put me in a bit of a different perspective. Again, just when you look at it through the emblem of you're going to ask that guy to be paid $55 million a year. You're going to ask that guy to be paid double, sometimes more than double that of the next guy on the roster beneath him. He's got to be able to earn that kind of money to be asking that much on the other end of it. All right. Well, we've hit the end of the line here on this one. I want to thank you guys for watching today. Please hit that like button if you could out the door. Please get subbed up like Francie Dickinson has as well. As we're trying to get to that 15,000 subscriber mark. We're right on mark. We're right in line to get there. But you can help us fully land this up by getting subbed up today. Thank you again to the sponsor of the show, Underdog Fantasy, and the Bleacher Report for having me out there over there on their app today for some post-game discussion. I will post that down in the down in the comment section here after this video tonight, so you can clip that. It's a quick half-hour breakdown of the game, just a quick summation if you're looking for that. I thank you guys for watching tonight. It's good to get a win against a tough team this year and maybe take back and bring back a little bit of hope to the season for whatever that's worth. Hawks are going to have to go on a run now. You got to take all three of these games down to get into the playoffs. But if they do that, then they've certainly earned their way in at 10-7. They've gotten the job done, and then once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen, especially if we come to find that team playing its best football at the end of the season as they enter into that playoffs, rather than getting into the playoffs like we did last year, we were limping in. We had a lot of injuries. We were barely holding it together. Maybe not necessarily going to be the case this year in how we look if we get in the playoffs this season. Maybe a bit of a different flavor we're able to bring. I thank you guys for some awesome discussion and talk and some different places we can go in here, and even that we can still, again, always have the respectful discussion, even in disagreement. I thank you to the fans who came in here, from Eagle fans coming in to Niner fans coming in here, even to Maria, you coming in here, coming in and being respectful as always when you folks do come in, and that it's always welcome having those different perspectives coming in and views, and we definitely do value it here. I value it here at the Hawks Nest as it widens the perspective, and when you get your widened perspective, you're more intelligently understanding the situation, I think, and truly believe that. I thank you guys. I love you guys. It was a hell of a game. We got ourselves a win. Season's back on board a little bit here for a while, and hopefully we can continue this to bring this home now. It's going to be fun to watch this play out. It's been a great ride with you guys this year in the ups and the downs, no matter what. It's been an awesome every step to experience it with you guys at the same time. I love you. I appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with the B&B show to do the breakdown of this game and chop it up nicely. But until that time, I hope I don't have to remind you, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're back in line for maybe the playoffs here, baby. Don't you ever forget. Don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.